I want to welcome everybody and apologize for starting a little late because we went out to visit the potential site for our dog park. A reminder that this is a combined meeting. We start out with a work session. At the end of the work session, we usually take a little bit of a break. Then we have our public meeting, at which time public comment will be welcome. Okay, so right now, the first item on our agenda, we have our borough engineer here, is the dog park. So a number of us went out there just to observe where the stakes were. I think one of the common threads I heard, for the most part, was that we would like it a little bigger. Other than that, I think we are determined to build a dog park.
Who said we wouldn't be there?
The majority of the people that were out there. Sorry you weren't there. One of the things I said is, I think if we're going to do a dog park, we want to do it right. This is Tenafly. We need to have a nice dog park. That doesn't mean we have to have every bell and whistle known to man. And I also believe that there's a lot of private money out there that will be donated. So I think the next step is to come back with a little bit more of a conceptual plan. And we're obviously going to open this up to the discussion at the table, at which point it might behoove us, Andy, to give us a sense of what fencing is out there, what type of fencing, the height of the fencing, the potential additions is such as water, whatever.
Does everybody know that there is a layout?
Yeah.
So what you have in front of you is, we'll call it the basic elements of a dog park. So it only had a 4-foot high chain link fence. It had 2 dog parks, a small dog park of 40 by 40, a large dog park of 50 by 40. It included benches, some benches. It included a kind of an entrance area where you walk in, you can lock a gate, you're kind of secure, and you open another gate and the dog can walk in. And then it was just an area that would be wood chipped. You put 6 inches of what we call a 5-bar wood chip, which is a very environmentally friendly, non-splintering wood chip. And that was the basics. It didn't include a lot of the other stuff, but it basically constructed for you 2 areas to get you a general dog park area. All the other amenities people would have to bring with them at this point, unless you wanted to advance other stuff that was talked about outside by some of the residents.
Well, I think what would make the most sense is you gave us a basic breakdown of the price of that size.
Yes.
I think we'd like to get a sense of, if we were to enlarge the large dog area a little bit more, what additional cost that would be, and any additional items that you think might be of interest to us.
Okay. I mean, if you enlarge it, if you were going to enlarge for example, if you enlarge the bigger park from 40 by 50 to say 80 by 100.
Well, that's
a lot.
No, I'm just giving it just for cost. You double the cost. You go from $9,000 to $18,000. So if you want half as big, you go from $9,000 to $13,000.
Yeah,
so
we understand.
You could kind of adjust that cost.
The only thing that changes is the black vinyl legs, basically fence.
And the wood chips.
And the wood chips, yeah.
That's it. Everything else stays the same.
Yeah, so.
One of the things I think we ought to do sooner rather than later is have a public discussion about this. I think, and the newspapers can become very handy. We should schedule a meeting where we invite the public to come in and make comments about the dog park. I don't, do we not call it a public hearing, or what would you call it, Jewel?
It could be, I mean, it can just be a discussion item under to be considered.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
But I think we need to publicize what we're proposing to do, and the location, so that the neighbors can come out and tell us, how they feel about it. And this is one of those things that no matter where you put it, I think you're going to have some opposition to it. But I think we have some answers to some of the questions. First of all, certainly this is only for daylight hours, so it's not the park is not going to be open in the evenings.
Yeah.
I think the idea of putting plantings on the outside of the fence makes a tremendous amount of sense, so that really from a visual perspective, people aren't going to see too much.
I would and this is my recommendation, but you have a basic estimate and a basic layout. If you're gonna hold a public hearing, in my opinion, I would leave this as it is, because I could keep drawing plans and giving you estimates all the way, and then get public feedback about things like landscaping and some of the other things we heard outside, like water and electric, whatever it may be. And then I could come back to you with whatever you want from that meeting. If you want to make the dog park twice as big, half as big, 25% bigger.
So we'll listen to the public's suggestions and comments on what they want in the dog park. And then, maybe what we can do is put a subcommittee together to come up with a plan, work with the engineer. Max?
Okay, we've been through this dog park for years. And we looked through all the locations and we decided as a council that that's the location we want to build. So what I would like to suggest is that we don't open the same argument that kept us for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years from building the dog park. As far as I'm concerned, the council decided that that's where the location is. So what we can look is the two different amenities, or we look at different options, but we're not gonna start all over again now with, let's put it over there, let's put it there, so other places.
Well, I understand your concern, and it's a valid concern. However, I think we set a dangerous precedent if we don't ask for public input.
No,
And
we have to ask
And the
for public.
input is beyond, includes the location, but beyond that. What amenities, what
Yeah.
they feel about the size of the dog
Yeah.
park. Any and all comments about the dog park, we should gather them before we then go forward to the next step. I think Andy made a very reasonable suggestion
I
that
think
why
I
waste
agree.
money
Yeah, I agree with
until
that.
we know what we want to do.
Is there any way to get some price figures on things that are being discussed, additional plantings or water feature, so that when we have that discussion, we have those numbers at hand?
So I can kind of baseline for you almost right now. So planting wise, if plantings you're going to put around a fence, if you account for about $250 per plant, that'll give you a plant that's about 3 or 4 feet tall, a couple of feet in diameter, and they'll grow and they'll become bigger. A water connection, a baseline number to connect from a street and put in the necessary equipment is about $5,000 for water connection. Electric, you have over there, but you still got to run a line, so it's probably a couple $1,000 more for electric if you want electric for blowing leaves or things like that there. Other than that, I don't. Nobody else. The only other thing I heard out there was pea gravel. If you're going to sub out wood chips for pea gravel, that cost is probably going to double the cost of wood
Well,
chips.
I think one of the things we could ask our engineer is, what are the pros and cons of those two items, the wood chips versus the pea gravel? And once again, I am convinced that if we put together a budget, let's say the budget is $50,000, that we can raise that money privately, that we don't need to use taxpayer dollars to do anything other than the basic necessities.
But
That sounds
we
good.
have a capital appropriation,
Of,
50,000.
yeah, I think the $50,000 will cover the fencing and maybe some of the other things, and we can work, once we decide what we want to do, we work out a budget, and I think very quickly we can raise this money because people have been talking about this for years.
The fact that we have the budget doesn't mean that
mean
we
that
have to
we should
use
spend
the entire budget.
Of course not.
Yeah, so we'll look at that and we'll look at after the public meeting to see what
I'm
we
sorry, Andy, what did you say about the water connection?
Water
Rough
connection
estimate?
is traditional water service from the street is about $5,000.
And when you say it's not a pipe coming in all the way to the park.
It'll be a pipe right up to the fence line with a backflow preventer and a few valves and basically it's
So
big.
just a
that's-
basic.
okay.
It's a connection.
It might be less, depending on where it originates from.
I want to just agree with Max that, this has been for a very long time, cooking to get the dog park. A lot of residents have come to me. They would like to see this done this year. We've appropriated the money this year. So, I just don't want to spend another 3 months discussing features
I
of
agree.
a dog park.
Yeah.
And, the dog park committee, had a report in 2012 that included these things such as plantings and water features. So I think we should strongly consider moving this quickly so we can get this done in the calendar year.
Well, do you want to have a public discussion on the dog park at the next meeting?
Yes, as soon as possible, absolutely.
Is that?
May I suggest, since I was such a that I'm not gonna be here the next meeting, maybe the following, the first meeting in
I
July.
hesitate to do something like that in July or August, but if you want to do it in July,
Yeah, because I was such a proponent, together with everybody and stuff like that.
I can't figure out whether you're for it or against it, but
Guess what? What happened? What happened? Well, guess what? Yeah. So if we can, I'm asking the council.
make up your mind before the meeting.
What are the dates?
Yeah.
July,
16th.
Where is July?
July 16th, public comment on dog park.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
17th then?
Yeah.
Next is next is
It's a
Fister's.
Monday.
It's a Monday.
It's a Monday.
Oh, I'm not here on that one. All right, it's fine.
Andy, can
Well, you're
you,
taking the whole summer off?
can you
I'm
s-
not, but I am.
All right.
Can you stick around for 5 or 10 minutes or so?
Well, we have another topic as well.
So I have to leave by 8.
Okay.
Fister's
Yeah,
Pond.
let's do it.
Fisher's.
So Fister's Pond, a couple things have happened. We did all our field work is done, all our engineering plans are done. As part of the field work process, the project had required 2 permits, a flood hazard permit and the wetlands permit. We were able to, based on our field work, eliminate the first permit. So we do not now have to submit a flood hazard permit. The wetlands permit will be in early next week. The bidding, or I should say the receipt of quotes, will happen over the next 30 days. At your July meeting, we intend on recommending an award for the sluice gate and the trash rack that's proposed. And then the construction phase will be basically the month of August. And if there's anything extra needs to be done, we cover like the first half of September. But that's the window, but that's when the water is the lowest now.
Environmentally, that's the time to do it.
Well, Peter Punzi said that the water is the lowest in August, so that's what we want to do. We want to do it when the water is actually the lowest.
Okay.
in that pond.
Jeff, you have any questions on this?
Yeah, so we are sticking to the budget, it's gonna
Yes.
top out no more than 50.
We're hoping to be less.
That's always a good thing. Is it possible to get the committee a copy of the permit application when you send it to the station?
Yes, what we'll do is we'll submit everything to Jewel or Lizette, they'll have both, and you have access to everything. We'll give them a number of copies.
Excellent, thank you.
If with the council's indulgence, Andrew, do you
Yes,
have
sir.
any other questions?
No, I think it's in line with what we discussed, and I'm just...
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, that's it, I guess, for you.
And there was one,
Max, did you
you have
want
one
to-
more question?
No, there was another question nowadays, but if you have to go, it's later on the Oresco Park, but I don't think we're going to be there by 8
Well, what do
o'clock.
you have a question for the engineer?
Well, yeah, it's a question regarding Oresco Park.
go
If
ahead.
you want to do that now, it's easier. When we met last time,
It's not their project.
I know, that's why I am. When we met last time, I mentioned the fact that I looked at the RFP that was required. It's 129 pages long. And nobody will answer a 129-page request without charging $100,000 at least for that. And the result of the RFP came that only one responder came back, and there was 140,000 plus the other part. It was a 40,000. It came out to 180,000, which is way, way, way over the budget we have. If we're gonna do the same thing again, you know the definition of doing the same thing again, hoping for a different thing. And I hope that, so this morning I had a short conversation with Andy when Andy was calling me about this park. And I said, Andy, what do you think a park like that should basically, how long the RFP should be, or how big of the, and then it's maybe a few sketches and stuff like that. We should very, very seriously reconsider in submitting an 129-page contract and hoping that somebody will respond to 129 pages without charging the $100,000 just to look at the contract. And that's why, something that we need to consider.
So, hold on.
Yeah,
You're asking him a question.
yeah,
Let him answer it, okay?
good.
So, do you understand his concerns?
So we did talk on the phone, and I think the concern, I have not seen the project, so I don't know much about it. So I think the concern is the volume of the RFQ match the type of work you're doing? I have to look, I can look at
The
it.
RFQ?
Oh, no, the landscape architect did.
That we hired?
Right.
Landscape architect we hired. Are you familiar with this kind of work at all?
I mean, I'm familiar with that type of work, I'm not familiar with the project.
Right, so would you, just off the top of your head, would you find that length to be out of the ordinary? And do you feel that a complex RFP leads to a larger bid than it might normally?
It's such a.
It's a.
Yeah, it's a very
A
difficult
lot of
question.
it, a lot of it is boilerplate.
Right.
But the boilerplate has to be in there by law. It's lengthy, but I think if you were really concerned, you should have stopped by the office so we can show you a typical set of bid specs,
Okay.
which is this thick. What the prospective bidders need to concentrate on are the specifications with regard to the park design and particularly the monument, which is really the most, that's where you have the most information. And a lot of that, even though you're looking at the verbiage in the bid, they also receive the drawings. The drawings are far fewer pages, and that's the detail that they need to concentrate on.
So since I read the RFP and I'm very careful, that's why I brought it up last time, saying that's going to be a very expensive spot. The RFP requires, tell us how you're going to be basically dispose of the gravel. Tell us how you're going to do moving the. The only thing that we should basically ask over there, if you ask me, my opinion is, please abide by all the state and federal regulations and stuff like that. When you get this type of details, in my opinion, is you get that type of response because it's going to go through 150 pages, and it's not that just boilerplate. Boilerplate, about 29 pages were the boilerplate. The rest of them were really questions that every single one of them had to be answered, and that's why I brought this issue, because it's way, for $100,000 contract, it's so complex that only the very large and expensive.
Let me ask you a question.
So, yeah. That's why I was
Keeping
asking.
in mind that
Yeah.
our professionals don't work for free.
Yeah.
Would you like Andy to review the
Yes, I would like very much after, the results that we have up
You're
here.
not going
like-
to charge us $100,000 to read the darn thing.
No, it's only
Well-
500 bucks.
So for purposes, if you want, I won't charge you. I'll just look at it.
Good.
But it's not gonna take
Then we
an
have
hour.
a deal.
We have timing constraints here.
Yeah, I'd say Andy can do it the next week.
No, we can't do it next week.
We're going out, we're noticing the rebid in Friday's paper, and starting Friday late
Look,
morning, people start calling for the
You know the
specs.
definition of what it is. You're trying to do the same thing over and over
We
again.
are
I
not,
understand.
but we are
Yeah.
not
Not about
doing
insanity.
the exact
Yeah.
same thing because we have revised the
Yeah.
specifications.
Yeah.
And that's all, that information has already been prepared.
That's where I need to
and we
to disagree
submitted.
with you. We don't want to have a lower quality park only with one heart. We want to have both sides, but less of a difficult answer process. The last thing we want to do is have a park that has less features.
I think you're journeying into areas
Yeah.
that you're not familiar with.
I think I am. I am.
The bid
I
numbers
don't know
that
how
we
you can be familiar
receive
with
are
everything.
on, is on the physical features of the park. The bid prices have nothing to do with the verbiage in the document.
Okay. All right.
Because the piece, the equipment and the monument, that's contained in the drawings. That's not the narrative.
He's gonna look at it tomorrow.
Thank you.
I'll have Bob.
I appreciate it.
He's a
Thank
speed
you.
reader. He'll cover all 129 pages.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Andy.
Who has Lizette? Lizette, I'll help Bob pick it up in the morning.
Well, I don't have the revised one, I just have the original one.
The original's fine, that'd be good enough.
Then I can email it, 'cause I have it electronic.
Email.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next is the planning board recommendations on HPC landmark nominations. Okay, so, we don't have public comment during the work session, but I believe it would behoove us, if we're going to have a discussion on this, it makes sense, if there's people representing the owners of these buildings, they should get a minute or two to state their view. And when I say a minute or two, I'm not suggesting that their input isn't important, but we have to have some sort of limitation. I think the most important information we need from the owners is whether or not they support designation, and if they, why they do or they don't. And if that can be summed up. But first, before we go to the owners, I'm going to ask if the members of the governing body have any comments or questions. And we also have representatives of the HPC here. And I think Karen is here, right? Karen?
Right there.
At some point in time, I would like you to represent your board and put your 2 cents in as well, okay? So first, anybody on the council want to say anything to start?
I'd like to talk,
Go ahead.
I'd like to talk about the Wells Fargo building. I understand that there's different time periods connected to the building, but I believe that if we are to consider historically designating that it should be one designation. I don't think it makes sense to divide that building up into pieces. And, I think Karen could speak more to that idea, but, anyone who will take over that building or buy it in the future should have a cohesive look if the facade is designated that wraps around, I think, West Clinton.
Well, first, one question I'd like to ask the council is, do you want to look at this as a whole, or do you want to break it up and go piece by piece? Max?
It would be my opinion that we should look at the merits of each one of the buildings
Individually?
rather than a whole.
Okay. Anybody else have thoughts on that?
Agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, so then let's start, and for the benefit of the audience, we do have a chart in front of us which designates the street number, the historic name of the building, and the current tenants in an effort to minimize confusion, because I've been studying this for almost a year now, and I still have a hard time putting it all together. So the first building we'll talk about is historically called the First National Bank Building. It's number 1 West Railroad. It's on the corner, and that's the building Councilwoman Dayton was just talking about. There is an addition in order to the entire building, which wraps around the corner, was not built at the same time. And that's the corner building where Wells Fargo is. So any comments from the council, then we'll ask if there's any representation of the owner, and then we'll ask the HPC if they want to add something. Yes?
Well, this is more general comment, because you asked before for input, and Council Member Dayton had a comment, then you went right to this.
Sorry.
And I know that Councilmember Hayter also had her hand up.
Go ahead,
as
yes.
did I. Just generally, before we get into the discussion of each property, and this is something I said at a planning board meeting where we discussed this and they made the recommendation. This concept had come from HPC years ago to make West Railroad a historic district. And they were dissuaded by members of the governing body from doing a historic district for whatever reasons at that time. And were basically given the guidance to come up with specific buildings. And I think they've done a very thorough job of looking at individual buildings on that block and sort of cherry picking which ones to consider as opposed to the whole block, taking their cue from the council. And so I just want us to think about that this is not some haphazard, let's make a large area, let's just pick random buildings. I think they've tried to connect each of these buildings to something historic in town. And if, for example, most of these buildings are going to be turned down by the governing body, then I'm not sure, should that happen, I'm not sure why we really have an HPC sweating to try and figure out which buildings to put in and not put in, because they got clear direction. I think they took very seriously that direction and ran with it. And members of the HPC can speak better to that than I can, because they've been on longer, but I believe that's the message they were sent, and they have worked very hard to fulfill that message.
Howard, did you want to add something?
I have an entirely different perspective, Mayor. I'm just looking at it as the business district in Tenafly, which is not flourishing as much as we would like to. And when I see letters from owners of the building saying that this would be harmful to them, it's cause for concern. I'm really concerned. We don't want more empty stores because somebody cannot maintain a particular facade or whatever. I'm really concerned about that. That's my major concern here.
I share your concern, and I also have a concern about the rights of the property owner. Okay, but I also have this thing that when I sit at our summer concerts and I look at that block, I fall in love almost every time. Maybe I'm a little strange, but I think that's a beautiful looking block, and I believe that it's an attribute to the town, and I guess to a certain degree, I believe that look is worth preserving. That said, though, I also, as a property owner myself, I'm not keen about added restrictions to my private property. you know, we have this argument and this discussion and these points every time we come up against the request for a designation, and it's not going to go away. The
No,
only time
it's
we
not.
don't only time we have an easy time with it is if the owner supports the notion. Then I don't think anybody objects to it. Lauren?
So in response, you know, if a building is designated historic and the owner is facing hardship, they can't sell it, they can't fill it, they can't renovate it, they're losing money, they can apply to, you know, for a change in designation in the future. It's not an easy thing to overcome, but at the same time, it exists. If we come into such a state that our town is empty, we can't fill it, we need to knock a whole block down on West Railroad, that can happen still in the future. You know, the buildings have to come to the planning board or to this council and ask to be undesignated. It's something right now that would preserve the character and the charm. You know, as our Chamber of Commerce, Kristen Evron says, she talks about an experience to come here. It's not a big city town, it's a small, quaint town. That kind of appeal, you know, is why we move here. That kind of feel, the historic history of our town is why we move here. And so this does preserve at least the facades, and you could do whatever you want behind it. So hopefully, anyone who would take over the business can renovate an inside and be successful. And I'm with you, I want to fill our downtown.
Well, you know, you brought up a key word in my mind for this discussion, and that is facade. You know, this is the first time we're really looking at preserving the streetscape. We're looking at preserving the facade. And Karen, I don't know if you or a designate from your committee would want to discuss briefly what it means to preserve a facade. What does it mean to the property owner? What do they have the ability to do or not do with their building if the facade is designated historic?
So what would happen is if they wanted to make changes to the facade, whether it would be changing out windows, siding, a roof, something that was visible from the street, it would go to, and those changes have to go for building permits anyway. But once the building office sees that the building is a landmark building, they turn that permit over to the HPC. That system of review then goes to the HPC first. And the HPC will review those requested changes for whether they're appropriate to that historical style and structure. So it doesn't mitigate the whole building permit process. People still, I mean, these business owners still have to go through the normal process of getting signage permits or what have you. It's an extra layer of review.
Does it add
So
cost?
yes, I suppose in a worst case scenario, you could conceive that the HPC could say no to something, but I can tell you that we're not interested in saying no to our homeowners, our property owners, in the sense that people need new windows, they need new windows. And so what we're looking for is a solution that is appropriate for that historic structure. And so whether it's windows or roofing tiles or a treatment for the facade, a door, for instance, if they wanted to change out a door, you want the door to be sympathetic to that historic period. And so it's a question of style, really. And the other things that they normally have to get permitted for then go back to the building office, and if it's a signage issue, it's a signage issue. If it's a lighting issue, it's there's going to be an extra layer of review. It happens to be the only review process in Tenafly that doesn't carry a permit fee. So it's actually a free approval in that sense. I know we have to pay for everything else.
Well, let me point on two buildings. One is the bank building. Okay, I think everybody's familiar. That's probably the most familiar building of the lot, other than maybe the theater, which is my other building. If we designate the facade of the bank building, in your mind, does that limit future use of that building? Let's say the bank wants to sell the property, or I'm sure the owner is going to talk about the same thing. But in your mind, what's your perspective? What does that do to the future use of that building? And then the second one I was going to mention is the theater. If we designate that facade, that means that facade is never going to change. And I know, like, I drive through big cities where theaters, or even in Englewood, where movie theaters went out of business, they took the facades down. But if you go into the Bronx, and some of these other boroughs, old theaters, you may have a meat market or a supermarket with a theater facade. What does that do to the use of those buildings in your mind?
So I want to emphasize that we're not looking to freeze the downtown because all towns evolve, but what we're looking to do is to affect change in the sense that as those property owners of those buildings, and we have to make a distinction here between the property owners and their tenants, but the facades, we would seek to preserve the look of the downtown by preserving the facades. However, should a future property owner want to make changes to the facades, and sometimes those changes to the facades actually bring more historic accuracy to those facades. People make changes to the facades over time, and they're not always good changes.
Yeah.
And so as they move forward, we would seek to improve on the authenticity of these buildings. But as those changes are requested, we're going to review them and try to find a solution that is historically, I'm going to use the word authentic. That's a word that's, it depends on the style of the building, while achieving a solution for the property owner. In the case of the bank building, I think we all can think of examples where there has been a change of use in a bank building. I was just in Washington, D.C. this weekend, and there was a very large bank building somewhere down around K Street that's being converted into offices. I've stayed in hotels that are former bank buildings have been converted. And actually those bank buildings are very desirable for that reason because they're usually made in a very sound way. They're usually constructed in a very sound way and represent what we call good bones, solid architecture. And I would venture to say that the movie facade, as much as we have an Art Deco diner, and when that diner was replaced, there was a committee of this government that sought to retain an Art Deco look. You could argue whether you want that or not, but the point is that some of those facades are desirable to a new tenant. And so a movie marquee, while you may argue that, well, a future tenant might not want the movie marquee, it actually represents a much larger piece of signage that our current signage ordinance permits. And so a future tenant would actually have larger signage in the case of the movie marquee than they would otherwise be allowed. So I think you can think outside the box and think of how these facades would represent a positive rather than a negative. And of course, the historic preservation ordinance does not address use of buildings. So if there is a change of use, that is something that the Board of Adjustment and the Planning Board will deal with. That's not a historic preservation issue. That's a different decision-making body in this town.
I have a question.
Well, hold on, Max has his hand up. You're next.
All right, so listening through the entire conversation and remembering the conversation that we had before, I thought that it will be good, at least in my mind, to kind of set up some markers of what we want to do. And I'm asking your indulgence. It's also in the letter that we received from Ms. Cheryl Heller about her building. And there are four stipulations over here. One, I'm not going to quote because, tax credits we cannot afford. We cannot give tax credits, so that it's out of our possibility.
Wait, can we do are we doing this building?
No, not really. I'm doing some markers for all the buildings, generally speaking. Okay, one of the things is that we all, if we can agree, is that the only thing that we designate is the facade only. We don't designate the building inside, we don't designate the growth of the building, and it's only just the facade. So we all know that all the other events that are necessary for a builder to be able to maintain the building, to attract new customers, to be able to improve the insides, we're not trying to attach by this designation. The second one, it's very important because those are very nicely written now. It's the historic destination should not prohibit future development as long as the historical character of the facade is maintained. And that's exactly what we had here. And if we agree to that one, it's also very positive that we can move forward with it and making then the designations. And the third one was the signage for the building tenants should not be any more restrictive than standard zoning or regulations. So we don't put additional
Regulations.
Exactly, we don't hardship on the buildings and their ability to get new build. If we agree to these three type of conditions, then we know that we have kind of at least alleviate the worries that people can still use the building any way they want, improve it, be able to do any type of additional changes and stuff, like, as long as we don't deal with the facade.
Well, I
And
think
if
those
you-
three items are basically the description of what the HPC is proposing. That one
Exactly.
item that you mentioned is out of our power.
Out of our
But
power.
those three things, I think coincide with what we're proposing, what the proposal is tonight.
Exactly, and if we agree to that type of, that will be the basis, because I understand, Karen, you said we can put this in the resolution when we define what we mean by declaring. Then I think that from then on, we can now move and assess each one of the
Right,
buildings
well, Sean will want to-
and what we want to do for each building.
My question was cost related. Does it, I don't know the answer, so if anybody has the answer, does maintaining a historical facade cost a lot more
Yes.
than a regular building?
Yes. Yes.
Well, take the bank building. I don't think that, when you say maintaining it, I
Oh,
don't,
to keep it the same way.
it's probably not gonna cost them any more than it's costing them now to maintain it. The
That's
same-
what I mean.
That's the bank you're saying. I see Mrs. Heller shaking her head, but she has a very special building with columns and campus capitals. And she knows because she just recently restored them. So I agree, the bank building probably doesn't require any additional cost because it is what it is. But building with decorative elements, maybe
Yeah,
Mrs. Heller
it
can speak.
deteriorates over time, and in order, but.
Any building
Yeah,
deteriorates.
but on the-
They just had a situation
other
where they had
hand-
to repair the cornice.
on the-
It wasn't landmarked, it cost them something, I'm not sure.
The
how
issue
much.
is twofold. One is if they want to maintain the look that they have, it's going to cost them more than if they decide, let me go for a less,
Yeah, a plain Jane.
a less expensive look.
Yeah.
So, and once again, that would be precluded if they're designated, which is one of the reasons why you'll have some opposition. So at this point, I think I'll agree with Max. Let's take the buildings one at a time, and is there somebody here from Wells Fargo? Yes, just state your name and your your relationship with the building, please.
Sure, Danielle Cardone from Shapizi and McLaughlin, and our office represents Wells Fargo, the property owners of 1 West Clinton Avenue.
Sorry, say your name one more time.
Danielle Cardone.
Cardone,
Yeah.
just to make sure I get it.
I'll be quick, I know.
Nobody else is being quick.
I know I presented the opposition that our clients have for this before, but basically the Wells Fargo's position is that it's a commercial building. And the commercial buildings by nature will change hands more frequently than a residential property, especially in light of the changes to the banking industry, not only those that have happened to date, but those that are going to occur over time. Our client doesn't know what's going to happen to the site 5 to 10 years from now, but the property owner wants the flexibility to do that which they are entitled to do and use their property until they wish to sell it. Wells Fargo is challenging the designation because they owe it to their shareholders to challenge the designation given the impact that it has on the property value and the constraints that potential future property owners would have, which is extremely important given the commercial nature of the property. And I think that pretty much sums up our client's position.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything in regards to her comments? No. I don't think it's, okay. The next building is the,
Are we gonna go building by building,
Well-
Peter?
yeah, I think, unless somebody has an objection to that, this is a work session,
Yeah.
so we'll just get a consensus as to whether to move the designation forward on the bank building.
May I rest a minute
Yes.
on just one thing? The question has come up occasionally about the 1961 addition to the bank. And I would just like to state that according to federal criterion, the 1961 addition actually qualifies for a historic designation because of its age. And secondly, that it actually represents a very high-quality example of historic preservation with a sympathetic addition that was built in the style of the bank building to the extent that most people don't realize it's an addition. So it was done well then, it can be done well again if somebody wanted.
Well, I'm glad you did that. So the first question I'll ask the governing body is, do you want to consider the whole building, or do you want to consider it in two parts? Max?
I would consider the entire building.
Anybody have a differing opinion?
No, I think.
So I'll just go around the table, and yes means you're in favor of designating the building, and no is you're not in favor. For this building, I'll start with you, Shama.
Yes.
Yes.
Dan?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
So it passes 5-1. The next building is the Tenafly Theater building.
The next.
4.5,
No, that's not.
5.
Wait, which
That's the confusion. Just look at the bolded ones.
It's the theater.
4.5, 5.
Yeah, currently, there's three tenants there. As you're probably familiar, there's the movie theater in the middle, two very small commercial building spaces on each side. One is a sushi, the other is currently a boutique. Two-story building, last remodeled in 1926. The facade is, of course, in front of the theater. Karen, you want to make any comments on this?
I think I've said what I've had to say. I'm certainly, happy to answer any questions.
Is there anybody from the audience that has any relationship with this building?
Yes.
Please just state your name and the relationship you have with the building, please.
Sure. Hi, I'm John Galluccio from McCarter English. We're the attorneys for HJM 441 LLC, the owners of the building. I have very similar objections to Danielle and the Wells Fargo building. We have a changing commercial landscape. In addition to a bank building, I think even more so in a movie theater building, the landscape changes, the business changes. We don't want to be limited by restrictive covenants that make it difficult to market, to increase cost, to maintain the facade. We had an architect with historical preservation credentials present to the Historical Preservation Society committee, detailing why there was not a historical reason to maintain the front facade of the building. And we're more than willing to present additional materials from that architect and anything in writing that you request. But again, we would strongly object to the designation.
You're representing the owner of the building. The owner of the building is also the owner of the theater? Or is the theater just a tenant?
Indirectly.
Indirectly.
What is the relationship?
What does it
that
mean directly?
They're related, but it's not. They're not the same entities. Affiliated.
Same principles? Different
Yes.
entities? Okay. Same principles, different entities.
Okay.
Okay, thoughts on this building, please? Anybody have any thoughts before we
I know we've heard from the HPC on this as the rare theater that is no longer, in New Jersey. I think this is a wonderful example of architecture and of a use of a building. I'm very strongly for preserving one of our last theaters, that theater facade.
And I'm sorry if I could just interrupt in response to that. Use is exactly what we've been discussing, was not a reason for historical designation, and that was mentioned a number of times at the HBC meeting as well, and that is why we're very concerned, because it's not a reason for historical designation, but that's really what the HBC and what the council appears to be doing here, is saying we want to maintain that theater.
Well,
I'm talking about the facade. The use of
He
the
is
front
making
facade.
a valid point. We should
That's
not
not
be.
my point, though.
I know. He's making it about, not you. He is suggesting, but he is suggesting that we don't designate this building because we want to keep a theater in town. Okay? I don't believe that's the intent of the HPC. They're designating the look, the streetscape. I mean, what we're designating today is, for lack of a better term, the streetscape. Okay? The nuance here is, if we don't designate every building in the street, there's always the chance that the streetscape will change, however minimally it can change, because we're not looking at every building on the street. There's some that we all agree shouldn't be designated. In this particular case, the question becomes, well, if you designate the facade, are we locking the owner into the use of this building as a theater?
We have discussed this, and we have said that is not the case.
I'm not suggesting we didn't discuss it,
The
but I'm saying-
architectural detailing of the facade, the stonework, the garlands, the look of this, I think it's a wonderful example of architecture. And no one here is saying it must remain a movie theater. That has never been said. We've had this discussion previously.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, because what I had heard was use, and was that not what you had said previously?
It wasn't
one of the
it wasn't
few
a finished
theaters
thought.
remaining?
It wasn't a finished thought when I
Well,
was
no,
interrupted.
She did say it's one of the, yes, but rest assured that this has nothing to do with the use of the building. We're designating only the look of the front. And if you wanted to alter the theater and turn it into office buildings or a hotel, the only issue we would have is the facade. If you wanted to turn it into office space, you just have to deal with the normal regulations, the normal zoning regulations.
If I can say, the argument was that wanting to save a theater, it's not an argument to declare a building
Correct.
historic.
That wasn't what I'm saying.
That was not what, in my mind, we're gonna make a decision on.
No,
to
I
get the-
understand that.
the-
I don't want to say it was a slip of the tongue, but
Yeah.
it was understanding that somebody might perceive it as such.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff,
And,
please?
and I can't remember whether it was HPC, Planning Board, or here, because we've had discussions at each of the places, but I do recall specific discussion about that building and it having a lot of room in the rear of the building and room potentially to build up in the rear without it being something that upsets the streetscape or facade. So there has been a lot of discussion about multiple potential uses for that building. And strictly the facade being something that when you're standing at or near Hyla Park, the train station, which are central features of town, or you're coming into town through any of our main thoroughfares, though that's one of the buildings that just the facade is a striking look, but there's a lot of room toward the back of it for a lot of potential development, and this would not be restricting.
Yeah, and that's why I discussed the specific 3 elements of what we probably want to introduce in the ordinance, specifically just the look, and you can do whatever you want for all the other development.
Under our zoning.
Yeah,
Under our
according to, of
That's
course,
understood.
according to-
Unless anybody else has any,
What year did the crane go through it?
The crane?
I want to say
Crane went
it
through the
was,
theater.
this is a very rough recollection because Paul Stefanowitz was at one of our meetings and told us that story. And I want to say it was in the 20s or 30s. Apparently, some kind of crane or fire truck came
Before we
Don't say
were-
fire truck,
failed
please.
brakes.
Before we,
Okay, so
before
sorry.
we were bored,
The
Tony.
brakes failed and it came
Correct.
crashing down
It was
Clinton
about the
Avenue and
same
into
time.
the theater, something
correct.
like that.
Correct.
In the back?
Right through the front of the theater.
So then the front was changed.
very similar to what happened in
1920.
Lost its brakes and went right through the theater.
very similar to what happened in Englewood about 10 or 15 years ago.
And a
The
picture of
Watch
home,
Places,
picture
which
of home,
is right on the
that's great.
corner there, got wiped out by a truck coming down Palisade Avenue. All right, so we'll go around the table. We'll start with Tony this time.
Right across the tracks, right
Tony-
into the nose of the theater.
Are you in support of designation?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Dan?
No.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, next is the KBC Smith Building. And this is a very distinctive building. I don't want it to get lost in the shuffle because it's a little shorter than the theater, which sticks out with the facade, and the bank building, which is obviously very prominent in the streetscape. But when you look at this building,
That's the apothecary
Huh?
building, right?
Yeah, the apothecary building.
Please call it the apothecary because that's what it's known as and that's what it'll always be known as.
Yeah.
Well,
I shouldn't call
it's
it
easy
that?
for you.
No, always.
I always
It's
call it
easy,
that.
it's easy for you to say because your
Always.
mom got you medication there. But for those of us,
But
Always
that's what
knows.
it was.
Always. Always.
Tony got
so
it.
right now there's a CPA office, an appraiser, and Seesaw. Which until I did this survey, I didn't know Seesaw was there. I knew it was somewhere, but anyway, it's not the widest of buildings, but it certainly has a very distinctive look.
Yeah.
And I would like somebody's here from the KBC building?
Yes.
Cheryl, you want to just identify yourself and tell us what your relationship is with the building? And tell us how you feel.
Okay. So.
And before you start, I think Max read off your 4 proposals.
3.
Well, no, we read, one of them is out of our control. We can't do it. But the other 3, we agree with, and not only for your building, but for every building.
Everybody.
So thank you for putting that together. So Max didn't have to make it up.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So, the 4 points I brought up, I feel like I've really tried to work with the committee, the Historic Preservation Committee. They are all wonderful people.
First of all, your relationship with the building?
My relationship is I am the owner as of October, but my family has owned the building for over 50 years. And so any appreciation that you have for it, when you drive into town, when you see how beautiful it is, we will, we maintain it that way anyway. So it was bought as a business, and I do love it. I love the town of Tenafly. I grew up in Tenafly. I'm a Tenafly person. I get it. I get what you guys are all talking about. But this is also a business, and I have to appeal to you on that regard. So when we talk about it having another layer of oversight to get something done, I can lose rent when there's that oversight. There's a time delay in that. I just went through a little renovation, so I understand now. Coming down, putting it in, having the inspector, having the committee meet, and, does all the committee meet here, and then you have to propose things, and then they have to look into it. I could be losing 3 months' rent, and for the vitality of town, which is struggling right now, I had to reduce, I don't really want that on public, but, in order to keep things rented, I'm getting less income, I'll put it that way, and to maintain it is very expensive. Like, anything I do is unique. Nothing is, everything's unique. So I do work very hard and I have with my mother to maintain it. There really aren't many choices. The building's gonna be what the building is no matter what you do. But putting the designation on it, I hear what the other people in town or the other commercial properties in town are saying, and I think it behooves you as Tenafly residents to listen to your commercial people that have the property and say, maybe we need to look into this a little further. Are we, maybe other things need to go into the ordinance before it's actually decided. I don't feel that, all the constraints and all the issues are necessarily figured out. So I would,
One question for you, and I don't know if you can answer it, and I'm not a professional. The columns, are they decorative or are they supportive? In other words, if it wasn't designated, could you just remove them, or would the building fall?
oh no, the building would fall.
So they're supportive then?
Oh, yeah. No, you can't really do much.
Okay, Lauren?
At this time, do you have any interest to sell?
No,
Do you know of anyone who's interested in buying the property?
no.
Do you know of any person who's come to you to renovate the outside of the facade to different style, different architecture?
No. Why do you?
Well, because if we don't designate it, these are possibilities that could happen tomorrow. So we have to be aware that you, as the business owner, may choose not to live in Tenafly at some point, or may choose to
I don't live in
open,
Tenafly. I just
or
grew
may
up here.
choose not to have an investment in that particular piece of property. And so we as a community have to decide, if we don't designate it, what could potentially happen to that building that your family has worked so painstakingly to restore and
Well, there's
maintain.
a planning board, from
There
what I
is.
understand, and that planning board would have to approve and go through any designations and any changes, right? So if it's not in keeping with the feeling of the town, I would think the planning board would say.
We don't have a character and
No.
appearance right now, unless it's designated historic. So if it is not designated historic, tomorrow if you sell it, it can become a steel and stucco building, or, if that's what
Glass
a
and
future
concrete.
developer wants to do. And understand that that's one of the things we're considering. So, if that's not something we want to, and we get it, one of the things we're working on is to revitalize our business district. This isn't trying to hurt it, it is to try to create a community that's more of experience for stores to move into, not less.
Right, which is better for me. It makes it easier for me to rent. I'm on the same page as all of you. I want a
Yes.
vital downtown.
Absolutely.
That makes it better for me, but.
Playing the devil's advocate, though, when you talk about revitalizing the downtown, the question becomes, do you revitalize the downtown by keeping it exactly the same? Or do you consider options? Lisette, just a point of information. Where will this go? We're getting a consensus on each building. When will it be finalized?
Based on the final discussion, and Bill would draft an ordinance. It would be introduced, since it falls under chapter 35, which is zoning. It would go to the planning board for review and comment. They have 35 days.
So this is a process going to continue for at least a few more months.
I thought it went to the planning board already.
Well,
No,
it did, but
it goes conceptually for nomination, and then once actual action is taken, then the process is, it goes back to the planning board for consistency with the master plan.
Tony, please.
I will tell you, out of all of the buildings along West Warwick Avenue, this one, to me, has to be preserved more than any of the others. Clearly. It's, to do something otherwise to this building would be a travesty.
Well, it's one of my favorites too,
It's
but I would
everybody's
be
favorite.
misleading you if I didn't tell you I feel a little guilty sometimes supporting something when the owners are opposed to it. I do, but that's what makes this. That's why we get the big bucks.
It should be a win-win. I have to say, it should be a win-win, because at the end of the day, you're left with me to maintain it. So it should be a win-win.
Well, I'll tell you, honestly, if somebody was to go in and rent that place and want to change it, they're a fool. Because
Right.
what they have right here is a gem.
So they're gonna buy it for that, but I'm concerned with the rentals. I'm sorry. That's
You
the
have a right
struggle I've been.
You have a right to be concerned. This is your livelihood. We appreciate that, and believe me, it goes into the equation. It really does. Max, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Cheryl basically had 4 points, and the third point was a tax rebate, because we are not allowed to do something like that by law, so we cannot do that. And just to, because I understand very much your concern, a tax rebate would not allow you to renovate the building faster if we declare it, would not allow you to make it different. So the point you are making about the fact that this is going to produce delay, there's going to at $500, let's say, as a tax rebate, it's not going to change your process in the future. The process in the future is going to be the same. We cannot do the tax rebate, and I hope that what we can do is that if you have any problems with some sort of a delay or something that allows you come to us and we'll try to expedite as much as possible to make sure that
the
don't have.
HPC, in every sense I get, is that they are very determined to not be a roadblock, to not slow down the process. Yes, they will review things, but they'll do it in a timely fashion, even if it's between meetings. We understand the economics that you're talking about as far as that's concerned.
So that's true, and I agree, and that committee is wonderful. But I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but to her point, I don't know what committee's gonna be there 25 years from now. I don't. So.
That's the HPC, they're not going to change.
So they're very nice and very workable and want to expedite it, and we're all working together on that. But, 25 years from now, I don't know who's going to be there.
Thank you.
Can I just respond?
One second, with the council's indulgence, only because he's got a well-preserved Jeep. Did you want to say something, Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, that's
all right. I have a property in Tenafly. It's the oldest house. It's got a designation. I bought it with the designation. I've submitted applications to HPC, both when I was on it and subsequently. I found that the applications are reviewed very quickly, and I've gotten support from the commission on things that I've wanted to do. In your interest, I also placed a conservation easement on the property, which allowed me a tax deduction on my federal income tax for a charitable contribution. The easement is held by the New Jersey Historic Trust. You can do it if you like. I'd be happy to talk to you about it if you are interested. The other thing is, in the future, two things happen with regard to a designated historic building. If it's recognized as eligible for the National Register, which is the same criteria that the HPC uses, you can use the federal investment tax credit for rehabilitation on major rehabilitations. Now, that is a tax credit that someone who holds the highest office in the land is very familiar with. He used it on the post office building that he renovated but it can be done for individual properties of this type. The other part of this is, if it's a designated building, then the rehabilitation subcode comes into effect, which allows the local building department to make adjustments to the building code to accommodate historic buildings. So there's some pluses to owning a historic building, even a commercial historic building. And that goes for our friends from Wells Fargo and the theater as well. And those, we have an example here in Tenafly of where that has been done. It's been done on 91 West Clinton Avenue, which was a residence at one time and is now a school with an office addition. So we're very experienced in having done this. The commission reviewed that application. It went down to Washington for approval for the investment tax credit. I don't know the exact numbers on the tax credit, but I believe the investment was over $1 million. So translated out at the time was probably a $200,000 benefit. Tax credit, which, as you may know, is a much larger benefit than a deduction. So that's some of the summary of what the benefits are for historic properties.
So I think what we can take away from that, thank you, Kevin.
Sure.
Is there's certain things that are worth investigating.
Yeah.
And if you need some help, some direction, you have some people in the HPC that are very, very knowledgeable in the subject. They can at least give you direction and guidance. Lauren, did you want to add something on this building?
Ms. Heller, I just wanted to respond. You know, I wish that I would know our buildings and our property in downtown will be, you know, in great shape in 20 years. I really do. If it's the opposite effect and there is a hardship, there is, like I said in the beginning, the ability to come and reapply to undesignate the building based on that financial hardship. So nobody is looking here to bankrupt you. No one's looking to take away your livelihood or to hurt your business. What we're looking for is to try to make a business district that's worth investing in. Hopefully for other businesses, you know, to come to you and say, you know, we want that space. It's unique. It's like no other.
Okay, so starting with you, Jeff, yes or no on designation of this building?
To go forward, yes.
Max?
Yes.
Shama?
Yeah.
Tony? Yes. Sharon? Sharon. Lauren?
Sharon?
Yes.
Dan?
No.
Okay, next is the Sabin building. Is there anybody here from the Sabin building? That's the building that has Tablin and Cook Teak. I believe this is a unique situation where I believe the owner is supportive of the designation.
No, they wrote a letter, they're not
Oh,
supportive.
that's
They sent
right.
it on this agenda.
in your correspondence.
Is that the
That's
11th?
right. That's-
Yeah,
well,
the 11th.
Thank you, Max. I do recall reading that.
See, that's what's good for me, I read everything.
I read it once, but
I read it.
you got a better memory than me in this case. So, taking that letter into account, and since nobody's here representing the owner, comments on this particular building?
No. Can I?
Yeah, please.
Alright, I don't know how to say this one, but I looked at this building properly, and in all honesty, I could not find, personally, not being an expert at all, every other building has some striking details that would make you say, wow, this is a building I would like to keep. The Cooktick building, I could not, and I know that you have better knowledge than me. I could not find anything that I would think that in my mind was historic. So this is just my own 2 cents on this.
Karen, you want to say, first of all, she describes the building at 9-11.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand why they use that number.
I have the building
Previous
as
cars-
7.5.
Our numbers are correct. I'm not sure
It's
where
the
we
older
got the
building.
9 to 11.
I hope we talk about the
Same
same building.
building.
I think, I can assure you we're talking about the same.
No, no,
building.
Well,
It's the
do you
same-
know who owns 9-11?
I don't know what 9-11 is.
Well, that's not, that's Goldstein Jewelers, what used to be Zest, and Lazzaro's.
That's the building that Adrian Meltzer used to.
That's not up for debate.
No, it's not, but in her letter, she says
It's not their
she
building.
describes her building as
I'm not aware.
9-11.
That's what I mean. That's why I was looking at your chart, Mayor, and saying, which building are we talking about?
Scary, all right.
I mean, when he came to our meetings, he knew he was talking about the building that used to have the green shutters that Cooktick is occupying.
So it's possible that they have multiple buildings.
So,
The one we
I
talking is
don't,
Cooktick.
I don't know who owns 9 to 11.
All right, well, we're not talking about 9.5, we're talking about the Cooktick building.
Yeah.
Okay, and Max, I'm not sure I agree with you as far as the look is concerned, but my concern about that building is the condition that it's in. And and I think Karen, did they recently do some sort of renovation on the front of that building? Not to change the look, but.
No, what happened, what you're missing is he took all the shutters down because one pair of shutters was loose after one of the storms, not this past winter, but the previous winter. So he took all of them down because he wanted to make sure they weren't going to fall down on someone, and then he just didn't replace them. When I spoke to him by phone before his letter, and I said something about we would love to see the people are asking when the shutters are coming back. He said, oh yeah, we can replace the shutters. That's not a problem. It's just that they didn't get around to it.
So,
I mean, that's how he presented it to me. I don't think I'm misrepresenting.
let me ask you a question on how the designation would impact this building. So let's say, for argument's sake, that they wanted to build a 2 or 3-story building there, offices or apartments, okay?
Right.
If they were to keep the facade, but that's a
It's a single story,
it's
isn't it?
no, it's a 2-story
It's a
building.
two-story building.
Yeah, it is
There are
two-story, sorry.
apartments above
But
the
if they wanted to
retail.
knock that building down and keep the facade, would they be allowed to do that? And build a 3-story building?
From the historic point of view,
Would the designation preclude that?
no, it wouldn't.
What do you mean?
Whether
build a
your
3-story
planning board would
building?
allow it is another question,
Right,
because
no,
you know
right.
all the problems that go along.
Right now, it's a 2-story
Yeah.
building, but I've never been upstairs. I had to look at it 3 times to confirm in my own mind, after looking and seeing windows above the first floor, that it was a 2-story building. I had to look to find out where the entrance was to the 2nd story. I mean, it's one of those buildings you can walk by it 1,000 times and not realize there's a 2nd story to it. But I'm just playing devil's advocate again. They're opposing the designation, and I'm trying to figure out, if they wanted to basically knock the building down, they would be required to keep the facade if it's designated, but they could do, assuming they met all the other regulations, zoning regulations, and went before the planning board, the designation itself wouldn't preclude them from doing that.
But not to build an extra floor, that would not be possible.
How would they build an extra
No,
floor?
I said if they were to knock the building down,
Yeah,
Oh,
they
even
would
though
just
they would
keep
not-
the front wall.
But then you still cannot build on top of the facade because it changes the facade.
Well, that's what I'm asking. In other words, it's a 2-story building now. If they wanted to build a 3-story building, and basically, they would have to keep the front the way it is and just build another story above it.
I'm not in the design business, but we're interested in preserving the facade. Whether the planning board or mayor and council decides to
Right.
go up a 2nd or 3rd or 4th story, and you can make all those decisions about parking and structural decisions. We also are not structural engineers, so to your point about whether you can or cannot build, I have no basis to
Any
answer
other-
that question.
any other
But we are
thought-
interested in preserving.
Any other thoughts on this building before we vote?
Yes. I'd like to bring up that this is one of the first Jewish families in town. Isaac and Israel, his father, Sabin, were one of the first families in town. They created, it says in the history, one of the first Jewish homes of worship here in Tenafly. As a Jew here in Tenafly, I think that's a historical significant thing that, number one, we can trace back Jewish residents to this far back, and number two, that this family has been a long-standing family in Tenafly all of these years.
But hold on a second.
So,
Does that have
that's the
anything-
history of it.
Does that have anything to do with the facade?
Yes, so we're talking about the history of the building and why it's historic. So this
No, we're
fam-
not. We're talking about the facade.
So this family has maintained that facade. This historically, to me, important and prominent family in Tenafly has maintained this facade for almost 100 years at this point. In that state, in the rectangle state, it's not ornate, so it's not as obvious, I think, as maybe some of the other discussions we've had. But it is still historic. It's been dated 1904 to 1912. It's been maintained. It fits appropriately within the rest of the character of the historic time period. We've heard from the HPC that if the window shape, if the shutters come back, it'll look even more historic. So I would like to just bring up those points because I do think they're
Okay.
relevant.
Well, I guess I'll call the question. Dan, it's your turn to vote first.
No.
Lauren?
Yes.
Tony?
No.
Shelley?
No.
Max?
No.
Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the first one that's got a no. And then we have one more building to go, and that's the Bauer Ado, is that how you say it? Or Ado building, which is I believe it's only 3 stories? I always thought it was.
It's one,
It's
two,
a
three. Looks like 3 stories.
3-story apartment apartment, I would call it an apartment house with retail
retail
on the first floor. Anybody here representing the owner? No. Okay, any comments from first Karen, you want to say anything about the building? Or you or somebody?
Were the owners notified? Did you ever have any conversation
Oh, yeah.
with these owners?
No, I have, they've not replied to
They never
any
replied.
of our correspondence other than
I believe this is
that.
Dr.
that
Gardner?
Dr. Gardner, and we know
Okay.
that he received our certified
right.
letter.
But no response back.
Bill, you know him.
Well, a
right?
response saying that he signed off on
Yeah,
the
Bill,
certified
you-
letter.
I've never heard it mentioned.
Okay. Any thoughts on this from the council?
Okay. I think that this
next,
one,
Jeff.
and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Max. Then
I think that this one and Bank Building are the cornerstone of the downtown, and they create the historical picture of the entire downtown. And the apothecary and theater are just addition to this one. I feel very strong about this building as a historic building.
Jeff?
I was basically going to say the same thing, that this building in a sense mirrors the bank and adds something to the character of both ends of that street. So, same basic.
Thank you.
Well, I hate to disagree with anybody. I have a problem with this building. First of all, if it's of all the buildings on the street, okay, I don't find this to be the most attractive. I mean, it's a 3-story building, and I would hate to see it knocked down and have a 1 or 2-story building in its place. But I don't see any part of this facade in my mind that's worthy of designation. Like I said, I like the size of the building. I think from that perspective, it's a corner opposite the bank. I just don't, if we're talking about the look of the designation and the look, I'm not crazy about this, but that's just my opinion. Anybody have any other thoughts on it before we vote?
I thought the detailing and stonework was attractive, and I think it's applicable to the time period in which it was built. The stonework around the windows, on the corner, the way the brickwork works. I do think, I agree with Jeff and Max, it makes a lovely anchor if we are going to try to make more of a character to the town. I do like the way it wraps down both Washington and Westboro Road. I think that's architecturally attractive.
Tom?
When the Colonial Cupboard was there, we had one of our bigger fires on the avenue.
Then it's historic.
I would definitely say that we should,
I missed that coffee shop.
personally, I'd like to designate the whole building truthfully, but
Well,
that's my opinion.
well,
Yeah,
this is a start,
Oh, you
Tom.
mean in beyond the facade?
Yeah, be honest, it's a
you
it's a
wanna-
beautiful building.
Does anyone else want to consider that? I'd consider that.
All right, Max, I'll let you go first.
Oh, yes.
Shama?
Yep.
Jeff?
Yes.
Dan?
No.
Lauren?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Okay, so that people understand the process, it's going to be several months. Bill has got to put together an ordinance, Bill, or it's an ordinance, right? An ordinance that will go first to the planning board for their review, and then to the mayor and council for the final approval. As a way of putting closure on this, it's funny, I was looking at Gloria the whole time, because over here is something that our designated artist, Alice Rigney, did, and that's the exact streetscape that we're talking about. Every one of our buildings here. In fact, if we really had any questions about them, because she's very accurate, and it's kind of interesting to see the way everything looks.
It even fits
So,
nicely in there, though.
my-
Come on, guys.
I just like to put closure on this by saying, I'm not sure if we were to designate the way it came out today. In other words, we're designating 4 of the 5 buildings. And of course, there's that one other building in the middle that's not designated. What does that does to the potential of this street, development of the street. I'm not suggesting that, like what was done in Englewood, from an architectural or streetscape point of view, is worthy of being, looking at and saying, wish we had it in our town. But in the process of looking to get people to move downtown, we have these parking issues. I'm just hopeful that the exercise tonight doesn't preclude future development and continues to allow our downtown to move forward. I think we all want that, and we may all have different visions for it. I want to thank the HPC for all of the work they've done. I know this was a real chore. I mean, doing one property is tough enough, but doing all these properties at the same time. And to the property owners that are not supportive of the designation, I can only tell you that the town respects your properties. We want you to succeed here. If it ever comes to the point that you need to market the properties, we will work with you as best that we can, and I hope that it's long after I'm gone that if that was ever to come about. But your buildings are extremely important to our community, and we're not looking to make life difficult or more expensive for you. We're looking to hopefully make you succeed and improve your business outlook by making this downtown better. So we'll work with you any way we can. I want to thank the council for their serious deliberation, because I don't think any of us found this to be an easy process. Next, we have our canvassing ordinance.
All right. Canvassing ordinance?
Right.
What was the change here?
Yeah.
You just have to check the
There's no
ordinance
change,
that it
there's no
complies,
change
right?
shown in that, unless you didn't change.
There is
Why is it up
yeah.
there?
No, it's on for discussion right now.
It's a
and,
memo that says that it has to comply with the First Amendment. Don't be too restrictive, basically.
There's a memo that's attached. You'll see it's a memo from the Mel. The reason, the impetus for that memo is that right now there's a law firm representing a company that has been going around challenging the canvassing ordinances.
Wasn't there something in the paper today about that, or?
If there was, I didn't see it. But there's an environmental, active environmental.
Trolling. Okay.
Yeah, yes. Anyway, there's a Texas law firm that's been going around picking on towns, saying
there's we think if fingerprinting is improper and any curfew before 9 p.m. is improper constitutionally. The case
Constitution says 9 p.m.
This
It's the famous Ninth Amendment.
as an undue restriction on First Amendment rights. Now, the case that's cited by the Bell is a 1986 case, and in that involved all not-for-profits, political action groups, citizens groups, who challenged the fingerprinting and the curfew times in some towns, including Paramus, in Edison, and some other towns. And the court said that, and by the way, that opinion, if you read it, is limited to not-for-profits. However, our Mel Council believes that if it were presented with respect to commercial speech, it probably would get the same treatment. So the recommendation is that we change our ordinances to have 9 p.m., which has been pretty much universally accepted by the courts as a cutoff time, and to omit the fingerprinting requirements.
For everybody, only for the nonprofits?
No, for everyone. Right now, the not-for-profits are already accepted in our ordinance. So, but here's.
Well, you're absolutely correct. It really sounds like the
It's
changes
late
we're
at
making
9 o'clock
are
in residential neighborhoods.
onerous.
Yeah.
Well, they say in the summertime.
Well,
in the
no
summertime.
commercial business is going to get my business that they show up at 9 o'clock at my door.
And that's
Well,
the
nobody's
risk they
gonna-
run.
Nobody's going to answer the door.
That's a good point. The court said in the case that's cited in that memo, the courts said that people work, the citizen groups are volunteers. They tend to work, have jobs, and they can't start their canvassing until later in the day. Likewise, the people you would want to reach in your own town, a lot of them work. If you cut off at 6 o'clock, people have dinner, you can't reach your constituents. So he said that 6 o'clock was just too early. 9 o'clock was a more reasonable time. Here's an interesting thing though. I don't want to take up too much time here because I spent a lot of time with the chief about fingerprinting. The reason that the court struck down fingerprinting was they said that there was a stigma on being fingerprinted and having your fingers rolled in the ink and hands printed on the cards. So I talked to the chief about it. He says, well, hardly anybody does that anymore. They have digital scanners. You put your finger, hands down. It takes about 30 seconds to scan. Now we do have a digital scanner here, and it would actually speed up the processing. Well, the complaints by the law firms was that we have to go to Paramus to be fingerprinted, and by the time Paramus they run everything through and then send it to Tenafly. It takes like 2 weeks before we can get our permit. And that's why we don't want the fingerprinting. Well, the chief said, actually, if we did it locally, it would be almost instantaneous. But the problem is, there's an Attorney General guideline that says the databases that they're connected with, when they do the fingerprint scans, give more information than they're supposed to have for someone who's not a suspect or something. So he said, and the Attorney General said they have to preserve that.
Hang on a second. Database in Paramus is better than our database?
No, the opposite.
Our database is too good.
That the pedigree they get from using our digital scanner will have information that really is private information. And the Attorney General said if you do that, you have to preserve those records basically forever, and keep them private and safeguard them. So they don't want to do that. So now we send everybody to Paramus, and the mail says now if you're going to do that, take it out of your ordinance. So
our insurance people are telling us we have to do this, correct?
They can't tell us we have to, but they say it's they make a recommendation, strongly recommended. So the change is going to be no more fingerprinting. No more fingerprinting.
Give me $50.
And we're gonna charge more money,
Yeah,
yes,
50 bucks.
by the way.
Pay money, no fingerprinting.
No fingerprinting,
You can knock on my
9
door at
o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Right, 9 o'clock, no fingerprinting, and we increase it to $50.
Well,
Wake my kids, give me $500.
Yes.
$100, how about $100?
well, that
Well,
was.
the chief
Is
said
that
50.
excessive?
For 9 o'clock, why not?
He said it actually costs us more than we're charging $10 now. He said, you know, they still have
Measly
to,
$10.
a measly $10.
Yes, that was his adjective.
Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on
So,
this.
so that's the change.
His recommendations are,
Yeah.
even though they're not exactly what we'd like, I think we need to move
All right,
forward.
just a quick question,
50.
just,
Please.
100.
Bill, then, the 50 would also pass muster with the courts, that's not going to be.
Oh yeah, lots of towns have actually. I
That
think I've
has
seen
to
the
be
What
decision.
about
challenged,
100?
because I know the amount to be challenged is onerous and impinging free speech.
I suggested 100 to the chief. He said he goes. He said $50.
All right,
Yeah,
let's,
but
let's
that's his,
So
But besides, I don't, there's just not that much interest at this point. It's not like.
and do we have to show something that the political actions can do it for free with
Oh,
all?
that
So
is
it's already in there.
That's
It's already in
yeah.
the political.
That's
That's in
covered.
our
the only
ordinance.
thing is we're just
$100
taking out the references to fingerprints.
Way
Only if they
more.
run for mayor.
Way
That's the
more.
only time
Way
that
more
they-
for political action.
Okay, administrators report.
All right.
Let me just first point out, I know you're used to seeing on a monthly basis that we present a report from the building department, their activity.
There is a letter,
and
Vantage
engineering.
letter. Oh,
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
in correspondence.
I'm sorry.
You jumped
You gotta go
ahead.
to admin report.
Sorry.
And we have now added a monthly report called the purchase order report. And if you haven't had a chance to look at it, it's very detailed. The request per Councilman Bash and other council members was to get an idea of the expenditures. So it is in essence an expenditure report. It comes from our purchase order system. It's broken down by department, and it gives you essentially line by line what each individual expenditure has been.
I had a question on your report.
Sure.
The solid waste contract renewal. I have two questions that were raised to me from residents, so I'll. Yeah, the Covanta Sustainable Solutions.
Yes.
Can we, within this, I'm not sure if it's possible, have a composting option for solid waste?
A what?
Composting.
Oh, yeah.
It's something, well, first off, we already compost.
We
That's
do.
done by the recycling
By the
center.
recycling.
I don't know if a
Yeah.
resident, so we'd have to bring our composting to the recycling.
Correct.
I don't know, I didn't know that answer, so maybe we should make sure that's on our website.
But in answer to any other questions with regard to solid waste, this is an existing contract. So if you wanted to make any changes, as
We'd
we
have to
indicate,
wait.
that would have to be
The
for the
next
next
time you're in
contract.
I do have a second question.
The next time you're in the recycling center, look beyond towards Cresskill.
You'll
and
see those
it's
piles.
in the
Huge
area.
pile.
And if the wind is blowing in the right direction.
You
you'll
won't even
know.
have to check.
Make sure I get real close. The second question is currently under this contract for bulk garbage, solid waste, we have a charge for our residents, is that right? Is that, did you
No.
know this?
No. This is not with the garbage company.
It's not with
This is
WM.
with the BCUA.
This is to
County
remove from here to transport it.
Correct.
Right.
Anytime that you pick up garbage, you have to have a contract for disposing of it.
Right.
And at the time,
disposal.
right. And right now, the BCUA is giving us a better price than our private contractor could. And that's the way it works. One of the things that we noted, because we do have to always kind of look ahead, we know that this agreement will overlap with the time period at which our new garbage contract will be bidded. So as I indicated, we would include language that protects the borough's ability to stick with a lower price, okay?
Ever since you guys appointed John Worms to the BCUA, things have been working out great.
They doubled the price.
We finally found a place.
Yeah.
And as I pointed out there, the benefits to us, this is a significant shared service, and we get a lot of credit for it through DCA. Okay. Animal control services, the addendum. These are a lot of items. We'd like to just kind of give you a preview of things that are on as resolutions. And here we're always dealing with changes based on legislation. I was surprised initially, and then I looked up some previous articles. I did not realize that the SPCA was slated to be eliminated.
Yeah, I read that in your
Yes, that's
report, and I said, what does that mean?
Well,
Did I
that-
misunderstand this?
No, they-
And this was
they-
done by state law.
They've had some serious problems with the organization.
And
that
and
which-
the condition of the animals.
So, we're better off dealing with the locals and the non-profit volunteers.
Oh, right. So we're very fortunate, again, we're taking advantage of a shared service with the county, and what we're proposing to do and what we're recommending is that we accept their offer to just slightly expand our existing contract with this addendum, and now we would be in compliance. Let's see.
I had another question on this.
Sure.
I know you talked about a senior services coordinator being hired, but what about the teen center? Were they getting another employee? Do you know what
Yes.
status that is?
Yes, that individual has been identified.
Hired?
Their start date is the 18th.
Okay, I wasn't, right, I gotta reach out to Mark, meet this person.
Yep.
Thank you.
And he's already reached out, he and
What's his
in her
position?
QPA hat, Mark and we'll be meeting with Susan, along with Joe Rossi, so that they can make sure that all of their purchasing for the renovations are in compliance.
Yeah, can I ask a question, please? Because it's regarding, I don't know, do we have any schedule for the teen center renovation?
Oh, yeah.
Well, one of the things that happened this weekend was there was a sewer backup. And when there's a sewer backup, it comes into the library, not the main part of the library, but the employee part in the back, and in the teen center. And before we lay down a new floor, this has to be resolved, because this has happened before. It's not the first time. There's a blockage in the line somewhere, probably under the library. And this happened Saturday. It's a good thing that we had.
Is that something we
Your
can
favorite
do?
plumber was on call. Because otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to open the teen center, and the library would have had to close. So
Does that mean we
it was
do-
resolved, but Joe Rossi is working on a plan. I think they've already identified a date, because they're gonna have to do some dig up the floor, starting in the library.
It would make sense if we could get the renovation
We're
projects
coordinating it.
together,
Yeah,
of
well,
course,
that-
because
Rest assured, that's
Yeah.
it
happening.
saves costs.
We're certainly not gonna lay a new floor until this is
Yeah.
resolved.
Right.
No, but the question is, when you lay the new floor, might as well do the renovation on top. Don't lay the new floor, put the old stuff back, then come back,
The old
strip the floors, and put another layer on
The old
top.
kitchen should go
So,
on the new.
yeah, so that would be good if we could
Well,
do that.
I believe it will be done in the end of June.
All right, so
So
those,
it's
that's
not
what I'm
slowing
saying.
anything down.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, when you strip the floor once and you dig, the next time put just a new floor, not the old one.
Well, we would take that into account. Plus, Joe Rossi is involved in both projects.
Yeah.
Great, that's great.
All right. Federal civil rights compliance.
All right.
Susan, did you want to comment on
They
this
caught
at
up
all?
with you there?
This was a.
In charge of civil rights?
Yeah.
But you can see it, basically, essentially what, it was a request from our auditor that they were reminding us that in late December 2017, the state passed a law basically strengthening some regulations that they had already changed, which prohibits us from using a candidate's, an employment candidate's criminal history in a discriminatory fashion. We have already updated our employment application process and our interview process to take that into account. But the state actually issued a separate local finance notice, LFN, indicating that you had to submit a certification in conjunction with your budget. Because we did not wind up putting the budget in the FAST system this year, it kind of got overlooked. But the state has caught up with it, and our auditor has indicated that we need to do the resolution and submit it to
And I
DCA.
need everyone to sign the certification out there.
And DCA has also directed that the adopted budgets now be added into the FAST system so that the 2018 year can roll over. Because
But wasn't there a
2019 looks
problem?
back a year.
The FAST system was having some problems.
Correct. It
And
still
so-
is.
You're up.
It still is. But they feel as though they have enough of a handle on the
Okay.
corrections.
You refuse to
You know
sign,
what?
Tony, don't
Deb
sign.
can tell me. I'm like, what? We know. Okay. We got you covered.
He has to sign. He's reading
He's
it before he
reading it.
signs.
Are you passing that around now, or you'll get that later?
Right there.
Okay.
Since when do you read before you sign?
Anything else?
Let's see, Northern Valley, essentially we have a, there
The
was an
fireworks.
attachment. It was
The
really
fireworks.
in the form of an attachment to let you know that the HUD funds had been allocated. Those are the last 3 pages, I believe, no, last couple of pages. It says 2017, 2018, 2019 Northern Valley CDBG applications. And this was interesting because as of last year, there were concerns that CDBG funds would actually be reduced.
Yep.
And lo and behold, they were increased. So it actually made our Northern Valley Committee's job a little bit easier because they were essentially able to award things at the amounts that were requested, okay? Other updates, Safe Streets to Transit grant. Unfortunately, we were not awarded one of those grants. I love the fact that they tell you that they had 52 applications totaling $17.6 million, and they only had $1 million available. Of course, they don't tell you that when they solicit the
When you're applying.
applications. Okay. Senior Services Coordinator, Gloria left, Gloria
Give it to
left.
Peter.
We have selected a replacement for that position. I guess I can say her name.
Yeah, it's no
Miss-
secret.
Miss Karashi. And we were both in solid agreement on this candidate, and she will be starting August 1st.
August 1st?
Yes.
I was actually trying to close
The
She's
reason,
taking the summer off.
well, she was already scheduled for a lengthy vacation. We didn't want to, we want to do a reboot, what we want to do it solid without any additional interruptions. Okay, so that is a big job that we wanted to get done. Our summer fundraising has gone extremely well, and we're well in excess of $19,000 now. We've
Not
more
really,
than
we did a
covered-
lot better last year. It's been a big job, unfortunately.
Yeah, we I think we passed the 20 mark, but for us, it's successful as long as it covers the cost of the current year's activities, which it does.
We're not in the red, that's
We
good.
would be concerned if it didn't. And, let's see, I mentioned to you that the Senior Services Committee had identified a couple of grants, which I did prepare on the behalf of the borough and submitted them, and I gave you brief descriptions. One was with AARP, $5,000 grant to increase pedestrian safety and mobility for seniors. The idea was that we wanted to get more seniors walking in our downtown.
We can take that money and buy some more of those signs.
Right, correct.
Yes.
And then the big one, and thank you, Councilman Park. We had received a package that, for all intents and purposes, looked and was structured as a bid, but they kept telling us it was a grant. It just didn't look like one, or as they say, walk one like one or quack like one. But it was a grant. The councilman helped me clarify that, and we did have enough time to submit an application. The amount is $75,000.
Wow, that's nice.
Where's that?
Well, we gotta get it first.
We have to get it first.
What did we apply for?
We applied for, hopefully, resources to hire a full-time, age-friendly initiative coordinator.
Like the woman in, what's
Miss
her name?
Janet Sharma.
Like Janet Sharma in
Okay, in
Englewood.
Englewood,
If
like
we could get
Janet,
that money,
yeah,
we would
wow,
hire
that'd be
somebody like
great.
that. That would
We've
be
got all these different pieces,
Yeah,
and we
it'd be
really
great
need
to
an
have somebody.
umbrella and a full-time approach,
Yeah.
so
Just,
that we can make some strides.
On the events schedule.
Sure.
The pre-fireworks concert will start at 8 o'clock, not 8:30.
Okay.
And then the fireworks usually go off around 9:15 when it gets dark enough. So the concert will be hopefully at least an hour. And then
Okay,
we
so-
have the
yeah.
Waldwick Community Band. They're very, very good. They've been around for 65 years.
Whoa.
And
I
they'll
hope
be
they're different
playing,
members now.
they're going to be about 30 pieces. It's going to be nice.
Nice.
I hope.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So those are your list of events, so you can put those on your calendar, and the list of reports.
Do we just,
Sure.
Well, When are we doing Piermont Road? Please don't tell me we're waiting for school day.
No, this year.
No, not this year. It better be done like next week or week after.
Well, it's
When
not
are we
gonna
doing
be-
it?
It's not gonna be next week or the week after.
When is it gonna be done? I'm asking the
Well,
This
question.
summer.
This summer.
No. This summer.
It's part of the,
Pretty funny.
part of our road.
Okay, the summer goes from June to September.
Well, you know what,
So
I
need to know when.
would say this, probably we get more complaints about that than any other street.
We know.
So let's put that one down first. Let's get that street first.
No, but it's a separate, it's a completely separate
No, I
problem.
understand that, but
They're preparing the specs. Once they're done, there'll be a resolution to authorize receipt of bids, and once, hopefully we get good bids at the bid opening, and there'll be contract for award. So it's happening.
Max, I like that you got it. It's a separate bid.
I went
But
through
why did we
that,
wait so
I
long?
spent so much time.
Well, no, we had to get the money.
Listen,
It's almost $1 million.
Okay.
It actually, if you recall, we're still dealing with, and the delays at this point we were able to minimize, but keep in mind that the trust fund there was a hiatus. And that was where our first grant was. What has happened, and now we can actually do a larger area, larger section, is because the first grant has caught up with the second grant. So now we're actually doing 2 sections as opposed to just 1. So,
We're doing the whole street.
yeah.
Can I also just ask another question?
Mm-hmm.
We paved from Columbus Drive to the dumps.
Grove Street.
Correct. And now it's all been torn up.
Yep.
Well, somebody better explain why, and what are we doing about it? Because to me,
No, public service.
that's unacceptable.
This was, well.
This is
public
the
service,
entire
Public service.
county.
No,
It's not just that
No,
street.
yeah, but I've been
Public s-
saying, since I've been on this council, that we coordinate.
We can't.
No, stop,
It's
we
easy for,
can't.
Tony.
That's a bunch of
Tony,
nonsense.
no, it's not a bunch of
It's a
nonsense.
theory.
Public service
Yeah.
comes to us, and they went in 3 streets, okay? Grove Street, Franklin Street, and Woodland Street, okay? We don't have a choice, okay? They're their own entity, their own boss. They put in new gas lines, okay? I made a point at the pre-construction meeting that this not to be a patch job. They're gonna do a minimum of half the street, all the workers on one side of the street. So they're gonna do what they did probably on West Clinton. If you recall, one year after West Clinton was done, they ran the gas line up to the convent, up West Clinton and down Knickerbocker, and they redid half the street. So that's what they're doing on all 3 of those streets. We can't tell them.
And
No,
it's-
no, but listen,
it's
they
not-
didn't wait, BSE&G didn't wake up today and say, tomorrow, we're going to do Grove Street. They've been planning it for some time.
No.
Okay, all
Well,
right, all right.
they
everybody's
may
an
be
expert.
planning
All right.
it, but we got
Then
about
that-
2 months' notice.
Well, that's what we have an engineer for. You have to just do some investigating and some inquiring, okay?
Okay.
We just spent a lot of money for no reason. And what are we gonna do? They're not gonna come repave it.
They are gonna repave them.
They are required to repave it.
Don't we have an ordinance basically that requires laser level type
Infrared.
yes, infrared?
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Well, they have their own equipment.
but they will have to basically infrared, which means there should be practically no difference in the level of
Well,
the.
the key word is practically, you know.
Yeah, I
mean,
understand
You
that,
still
but
feel it.
I just
can
read-
our
still
engineer
feel it.
make sure that they at least
Yeah,
test that and make sure that it's, because they should be like all new, almost.
I agree.
But the main thing, and I know, I'm upset, Tony, about my own street. I waited for like 10 years for Queen Anne to be resurfaced, and it's a mess. This is not isolated. It is the entire county.
I made
So what,
a point.
we are elected officials.
Tony.
So you go to the powers to be and say, listen, we're not gonna put up with this crap.
The powers to be of the
Okay.
New Jersey State Utility
Okay.
Authority. Try going to them.
All right, well,
All right, I made I'm sorry, Jeff, one
Tell
second.
them no.
I made a comment because they sent us a pre-construction notice about East Clinton Avenue. They were gonna dig up East Clinton Avenue, and I said, the lower part of East Clinton, and I said to them, the county is supposed to finish East Clinton. They came down to Old Smith Road. They're supposed to go down from Old Smith Road down to Dean Drive. I don't know when they're gonna do it. They were supposed to, I hoped they were gonna do it this year. I said, you better get that pipeline done before the county comes in and does that road. So they cancel the project.
Plus Bergenfield resurfaced a portion of it.
Bergenfield resurfaced West Clinton Avenue about a year or two after we did. And that wasn't Bergen, it was the county. And then Public Service came
It's a
in and
mess
dug it
now.
up again.
Yeah.
So it's not unique. Jeff?
Just back to an
I share your anger.
item, Joel, so that I understand it. The request, the grant for senior services for $75,000 to hire a full-time age-friendly initiative coordinator.
Yes.
So let's say we get it and we hire someone. What happens year 2? Do we have to reapply? Now, have we
It's
a very
taken
good
on
question.
someone?
This particular grant, and they've told us up front that this grant has a 3-year window.
So they'll renew every 75 each year?
In theory,
For
it
3
will
years.
renew at least twice after the initial.
And after year
In-
3, we are out on our
Well,
own.
you know what,
Correct.
I don't mean to sound callous, but it wouldn't be the first position that was eliminated
Yeah.
because the grant ran out.
But maybe
Alright, I
by
just
then,
wanted to
there's
see what the-
there will be some stuff to, that will be, have been created, which can be,
Or just
Yeah.
separate?
Can we get to correspondence?
Wait,
Yes.
I have one more follow-up
Okay.
from Piermont, sorry, since we're talking about it. And I had asked Dan this, I know he had looked into this issue, but we were supposed to have bike lanes, and since it hasn't been paved yet, and the engineering specs are still working on it right now, we are supposed to have safe bike lanes on Piermont. Can we look into that?
Can I ask you a question? What do you mean by we were supposed to?
Isn't it a state initiative that we're supposed to, or a county initiative, some initiative that we're
Well,
supposed to have these
we
bike lanes?
adopted an ordinance.
Yes.
But it's not, apparently it's
doesn't
not
require-
wide enough
It's-
according to their standards.
Right.
That's
And
a
we
double
can,
wide road, what other road is, that's a huge road.
And don't worry, that we're gonna have the Northern Valley Greenway with bike path right alongside of it.
the main thing is we'll check with the engineer
We do.
and give you a
We can do
reply.
that.
Tenafly has
It's
it.
a, it's a worthy, it's a,
Thank you, Jeff.
it's
We
a,
have an ordinance.
Oh,
it's certainly a worthy thought, Lauren, because
Okay.
it's much nicer road to ride than County Road,
Or
once the
9W.
bumps are eliminated.
Yeah.
Jewel?
Okay,
Wait, one sec. Engineering report.
Thank you.
I think it was last year. There were 3 properties where water was collecting on the curb. One of them was my neighbor, and she pulled me aside the other day, and it's still not done.
where is this?
Lindley,
It's still not done? That's 20 Lindley, I think?
30.
30 Lindley?
Yeah.
Send Andy a note on that, because I walked that with Andy 2 or 3 years ago, and according to Andy and Bob Culvert, they did the work. I'll check it out the next rainstorm, but that's very disappointing.
And just because we have this purchase order report, it's, what is this
Page
54 from the school board, what is this?
What
Can you give us
page?
a page, Max, because it's 150.
No, it's separate, it's a page, no, it's not, it's separate.
Oh, under administration?
Yeah,
That's one half of the payment for our IT services, our IT
okay,
contract.
all right, thank you.
We pay it in two payments.
All right.
Whether you're ready or not, correspondence.
yes, thank you.
Thank you. We got a thank you from Vantage Health. We, every year, we recognize them during the budget process, and it's money extremely well spent.
What, I don't remember, remind us, Peter, what is the Vantage?
We give them
Health?
a couple, what do we give them?
$7,000.
$7,000 every year.
But what are they, why do we give them? I don't
Senior
remember.
services,
And
special.
mental health.
Mental health.
And they service residents from Tenafly.
For free?
Well, it depends, because we can't say,
Well,
because they have a
they're
variety of
nonprofit.
programs.
They're a
right.
nonprofit, so they're not making any money.
Stigma-free, and we'll make sure to extend an invite to Pride Day to them next
The
year.
next letter was from Ms. Heller about 6 West Railroad Avenue. Then we have a letter from the Division of Senior Services. Jewel, you want to talk about that?
Yes. I think Gloria was also interested in that as well, but essentially, the county is indicating that they are stepping up their role in terms of outreach for senior citizens. Everyone is basically trying to get into the age-friendly mode.
Yeah.
And they have set up a series of programs. And one of the things that they would be interested in doing, the same way they come occasionally for the county clerk, they would like to come and present to us what activities and services they can provide for senior
That's a good idea.
citizens.
Max, let's discuss it at the seniors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Services
Let's put it on
meeting.
it.
I don't know if we want to
Sure.
invite them to the Senior Services Committee or to the Mayor and Council. May make more sense to the Senior Services.
Peter, I'm not gonna be here next week. She changed the
I'll pick it up.
schedule, and I wanna,
I'll bring it up.
yeah.
Next letter is time to choose a hotel for our league
Yeah.
conference.
Caesar.
What's that? You pick it, since you're coming this year.
Are you
No,
coming?
I'm not.
We just got invited, they said.
Pick the Hard Rock, it's new. People can't taint it.
Actually, we usually rotate
Hard Rock
between
sounds awful.
Caesars and the Borgata. Any preferences?
No, like Caesar.
Why ask me for my opinion if you don't?
What
Well,
about
if
the
you
new
come,
ocean
we'll
one?
go to the Hard Rock.
There was just one in the
Well, then we're
new
not-
ocean something.
Rebel.
Fine, when you
Is
get
that what
bit
it
by
was?
bed bugs.
The former rebels.
No, the Hard Rock.
I went
No,
there.
no,
I
no.
never
The
been.
Hard Rock is the Taj.
Yeah, Rebel is the ocean, whatever.
Right.
That new one in the ocean just was in the
That's
paper.
good to see it, because that one is so far.
They're all separate.
the center of town.
So is the Hard Rock.
Yeah, so also the.
Caesars is nice, you can walk.
Exactly.
You can
Let's
walk
go
to
You
everything.
can walk on the boardwalk, you can get all the others. Yeah, let's go.
Caesars?
Caesars.
Caesars.
Wait, who is going? So that way I don't
Okay, first
overbook
is-
and then I'm asking, do you want to go to the league? Do you want to go to the league the day after election?
When do we have to tell you bye? Because I just have to check my husband's calendar to make sure someone can watch the kids.
I can't get
school permission till after July 1st.
Do you
I mean, I can cancel.
go to the teachers thing down there?
I'll go if anybody
I would
else
like
is
to
not
go.
going.
I would like to.
Yeah, so put your name in and you can cancel.
Okay.
Why not?
Oh, you don't go that way.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You have to go. I gotta hang out.
You can hang out.
No,
Yeah, I
you
just
didn't.
left.
Don't remind
I
me.
need training.
Okay, where are we now?
You can go and.
Next is a request. It says it's from Julie Bloom, but I believe ghostwriter is Mark Zenner. No, Hamilton Place.
I actually spoke to her on this. You know, she said she's been asking to have this street
We can
papered for 2 years.
Just ask the engineer to put it on his list to inspect. I mean, look, in a perfect world, we could do it, but there may be other streets that need it more. We'll have to see.
So, but there was a question I had, and we passed by. We got the list of the streets that we're gonna be paving through the
Co-op.
co-op. And our budget, if I remember right, was 600,000, not 470.
But we reduced one of the
Just one
streets.
second, and can we get to the streets back to put on to match the budget?
200,000 of it is the grant match for Piermont Road.
Okay, we had separate grants for Piermont Road, and we have.
No, but you have to
600
put 200 into it.
For the match.
We appropriated for all the roads $1.6 million.
Yeah, 1.6 exactly.
9.
And exactly, and then just for 900,000 was Piermont with the all appropriation, and like 600 was all the other ones. In all the other ones, when we came back, we got 470,000 on the streets that we put in. So we have another 130 or 130,000 to get from the allocation of 600 towards regular streets.
We talked about
I don't
we
think
took out
that's
the
right.
Fifth Street.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Then
sound
we
right.
get the bits back.
There's
we'll
money
just go
for the
Fifth.
Bergen County curbing.
Right.
And what they're
ADA
waiting to
stuff.
see, yes, and then what they're waiting to see is how to make sure there are no change orders, anything that comes up with the project.
Right,
What's
right.
left over once everything is said and
Could
done.
be,
Closed out.
could possibly be
Yeah,
reallocated.
we'll apply it to another street if this money left.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, there are
Well,
100.
right now, we can't
But we
tell.
can't do it at this point in
Can't do it.
time.
Why?
We have to
Because we
wait for
don't
the
know how much
project
We
is
haven't
be
done
left.
any work yet.
It has to be closed out.
But hang on a second. When we got the first 5 streets, we didn't do any work either. It's just basically, it's based on budget. Why can't we, based on budget, get another 3 streets?
Because I think they just told you why, they just explained what the difference is.
You submitted a road program,
Yeah,
and that is what the road program dictates what your funding will be. And that's what, you just don't add things in, because we went out for capital bond ordinance.
Yeah.
There's investors that get involved, and then,
so Susan,
stick
just
to
listen
what
to me for a second.
say you're doing.
In our capital bond that we submitted, we put 600,000, not 470. So in our capital and the bonding we did, we have another 130 that it's already included in that. So my question is, now that we have that already in the capital, already bonded, already, we can have additional streets submitted for
No, because from that 130 is the engineering cost and the county curbing, which
Where's
is
the
about like
130
60,
coming
70.
What was that?
it was included in that, okay.
Of the 600,
Do
the
me
way
a
the
favor.
bid
He-
came
Can you
in.
He's
check?
backing out the bid for Riverside. We know what the numbers are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you can't add more roads right now. You have to.
If there's money left
do
over, we'll add roads.
Yeah.
You have to
Absolutely.
do what was planned, and then if there's money left over, then we could
And it'll get done this
Think
year.
about-
If there's money left over, we'll get it,
use
we'll get an
that
extra road or two
appropriation for
done.
other roads.
But do we have like a plan B of
Yeah, we have
roads
three,
we
four.
could add?
Yeah, we
We
have
always, yeah, we
We
have
got
a
Plan B, C, and D with
Yeah, we
roads.
have 3 or 4 roads
You took
additional.
only one road out, right,
Small one,
originally?
So,
Next,
can I just discuss, we are spending so much money on paving, we have to look at some cost to bring this in.
Yeah.
Or have it shared service with another town.
we do, we have
This
a
is-
Riverside Co-op. We're
But
sharing
Riverside
with-
We share with 15.
I'm talking about owning equipment here in Tenafly and having our DPW work on this.
That's what we
No.
want to do.
Because this
now.
is
No.
outrageously expensive for not enough roads. The biggest complaint, and Max has said this many
Yeah.
times in our town,
No,
is that our roads are falling apart.
But you're not gonna do it cheaper on your own.
Yeah, look what I'm thinking, and
We'll
as
get
soon
a
as
lot- we'll get
you're
more
gonna
done
call
for the
this
cost.
No,
DPW
you're not.
committee.
Closter did that
Looking
2 years
to
ago.
the
Closter
lease
didn't go with the
equipment
co-op,
for
and
6
they ended
months.
up paying
See how
much
we
more
can do
for
with this.
asphalt than the co-op did.
But how much did they
Yeah.
get done? My question is, we are getting 4 roads in Piermont done for $1 million. $1 million plus.
But you're-
We have to be able to get to all these side streets, like a Julie Bloom who's been waiting 2 years.
And I tell you, Mayor, quite, I think I've been on several Facebook pages, several other groups. Everybody is posting pictures of broken down
I'm not
streets.
disputing it. One of the things I would propose that we're gonna have to consider spending more money.
We might,
You're not,
we
you're
might.
not gonna get it done cheaper.
2 years ago, you doubled the allocation to $1.2 million.
Right, which was the,
And
what you
now,
had to do.
the things that we're buying are the things that were deferred by doing that. If it's something you want to do every couple of years, but there are always gonna be needs over and above simply roads.
Where I grew up, we had pavers come every summer and they redid our roads. And maybe they didn't mill the entire road, but they resealed and they paved and the road stayed
That's
in much
called-
better
That's
condition.
microsurfacing.
Okay,
Which
so
we've done.
then maybe we need to look at a microsurface and, have our DPW fill potholes in microsurface roads because our roads are deteriorating at a faster rate. We
Yes,
cannot
we
keep
can-
up.
I must say about the potholes, we have to catch up with those potholes faster than we are
Yes.
doing. I mean, some of those potholes are trenches now. At least if we catch up with the potholes, then maybe that'll reduce the complaints, because if you're driving on the road and it's just like a bombed out.
I'm not arguing with you. I
I mean,
don't
there has
disagree.
to
We
be a
need to call the
methodology.
committee on
Yeah.
this DPW.
Yeah, the
and
DPW
start.
committee has to start looking at methodologies.
They're out there every day.
$1 million for 4 roads, this is crazy.
Yes, even if
Okay.
we have to get some temporary.
Yeah,
work.
we have to. do
Next
that.
is the Little Free Library. My suggestion would be, by the way, for those of you that are interested,
I love
the,
it too.
the municipal library is opening up their first
Yeah.
Little Free Library on Friday,
Yeah.
right?
And bus
It's
stop.
over here.
Across from the diner,
Yeah,
where the
right,
bus
by the
stop.
bus shelter.
Yeah.
This
My
is across the
suggestion
hall.
would be to let this young lady know that she should contact the library if does anybody here have a problem?
No.
If they put it in front of their house, if
No.
the libraries, first of all, I don't know who's gonna stock it. I don't think the library's gonna wanna go up to their house.
She'll
It's
start
a
it.
share, you drop a
She'll
book
start
off, you
it.
take a
Right.
book off.
Yeah,
That's
she'll
what
know
it
what-
is.
Stop.
But
Resident-
who puts the books in there?
It's right, we can walk, you and I can walk to this little free
There is
library.
one on Queen Anne Road at a private home.
So
It's okay with us, I'll
let
start.
the-
I have no
let-
problem.
let the
I'll be
li-
happy to
Tell
drop
her to
off books.
contact the library. If there's any issues, let us know.
Can we offer her another space, Davis Johnson Park, let's say, rather than Quiet Road where she lives? Why not give her a public spot?
I don't think you don't wanna put this in
This is 600 people at
Dave.
law school.
Yeah.
No, it's
like
a very good
Right
place.
across from the school.
It's right
They're not
across from school.
focused on book stop.
No,
They're all
no.
walking, I'm saying they're all
They
walking past
people will
your
be
house.
walking past it.
I don't think you wanna put it in Davis Johnson.
No, you don't want it
But you
in
know what,
Davis Johnson.
somewhere more public.
At Dairy
This
Queen,
is very
we should put it at
helpful
Dairy
for,
Queen.
like, that side of the town.
All right, the last letter is about 911 West Railroad.
We did.
We did that.
We did that.
Okay, I
That's
had
correct.
questions on the resolutions.
You have
Sorry.
a question about what?
Some
Yeah.
of the resolution stuff. Let me go to my notes. Sorry. The liquor licenses.
What is the number?
It will be B. What is Forge of Tenafly Real Estate? We're
That-
giving a liquor license to them.
That was what Charlie Brown's used to be,
Isn't that a preschool now?
it's a preschool, but it's unsighted. The landlord of Charlie Brown's, when they went for bankruptcy, bid to keep the license. And he was initially selling the license of the property, he couldn't, he sold the property, he still has the license, and until he finds a location, it is renewed every couple of years.
What do you call that when it's not being used?
Pocket
license.
license. I always vote against that because it's against the best of benefits of the town.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, those are the rules.
So that's state controlled. We have nothing.
Yes. I have some good questions if you.
Well, let Lauren finish
No,
first.
go ahead.
Okay,
I'll share.
okay.
I'll go to my next one.
There are two, over here, there are two extension of the contracts, I and J. One is for the police vehicles and the other one for the traffic signals. First, I'm object to the fact that both of them have expired, and now we are facing over here, they expired at the end of May, and now we are in June over here, basically saying, oh, we need to extend them after they expire. It's not the way to really contract business. Secondly, while I spend
Is
a
there
lot
a
of
question?
time, yeah, no, I have a question. I have an objection to the fact that an expired contract is going to be basically presented to us to approve it without having at least a chance to, it should have been before it expires. You say, okay, we want to extend it before it expires, so we have a chance. Now there is absolutely no chance to do anything. And the question is, I spend a lot of time with Susan on the police vehicles, and we looked through many of the costs, and that they're okay. We know that the traffic signals, the Jan Electric, it's a disaster. It's very expensive. That's the one that basically, when we ask for a traffic, the flashing lights.
Oh, that's the $22,000?
$23,000 that we know is $3,600. And now they expire, and now we are in a position that either we extend or we have no contract. It's very detrimental to the good business to have it in to extend it after they expire.
And as far as I know, we had already discussed having the traffic signals looked at and assessed, and now this is not the company we want to do it with, and we
Who do
have
you
no
wanna do it?
opportunity to. I don't know.
We
because
wanna basically have it
we need
bid
to know
out.
who else is out there, and I
Well,
don't know that.
apparently, there is not a lot of companies out there that want to do this.
I talked to
What
the
was the
chief,
chief-
and
what
we
was the
can
say,
look
what
at
the
the
chief
ones
said?
that do in Englewood, we look at the ones that did in Bergenfield, and we can
There's
all
a
look at
reason
them.
for it.
There's a reason.
There's a reason for this.
For
Yeah,
what?
the reason why the contracts were extended to the end of the year is because these contracts have been rolling over mid-year to mid-year, and they're not consistent with our budget.
Yeah, we understand
So-
that.
But it's hard to get a contract for 7 months, so we extended it to the end of the year, and we'll revisit towards the
Yep,
the
but
last quarter
why
of this
is
year.
it
where
after
we-
expired? It's expired in May 28th, and now we are in June,
I can't speak for the department heads. All I know is it was kind of a rush thing, and I said to them, do not extend it, do not renew this contract
Do not
for a
bid.
year.
You do
Yeah,
not-
do
do
not
not
do
rebid.
this for a year. We were only gonna take it out to the end of the year, because we need to be consistent with the budget year.
you understand the point, the fact that
Oh, yeah.
they already expired, and we are here with no choices, but to say, oh, what can we
But you're
do?
not gonna have no choices, because come beginning of next year.
Next year,
Until next year. it should-
Yeah.
Well, the bids will have to be done this
contacted.
fall.
Yeah.
The
You're right.
vendors were contacted weeks ago,
Yeah, but not
asking
us.
asking, do you want to extend the contract? Because we weren't going to automatically assume. and
Well, we
go
were
through the-
told that we
and go
could
through the-
not do it
yeah,
unilaterally.
and go through the bidding
Yeah.
process. So they got back to us and said, yes, we'll do the extension, and because of timing, that's why there's this delay.
But when you
couldn't-
contacted the vendors, you should have contacted us, because
I agree.
after the contract is expired,
But you're
we
not
have
gonna get
no
anybody else.
way of acting on
But
that.
we
And we have no
contacted them
negotiating
before.
ability.
Yeah.
Beforehand,
You know,
and it's
it
just
does-
extending the contract
It's
based
not
on
that.
the current bid. They couldn't
Lisa, do you understand that we are
So they
after
can't,
the
they can't raise the price at this point.
Yeah, but that's,
But if we're dissatisfied, or
With
if
the
we're thinking
service,
the current price is too expensive, we have no ability now to, number one, negotiate for 6 months, and number two, we don't wanna leave our borough without this contracted service for any amount of
We
time.
are put in a
moving
position
forward.
Now is not the time to negotiate. If you
Yeah.
want, you want to
But it should have
negotiate,
been.
should be negotiating the next contract.
And the
If
next
we knew it was up
budget
in
year.
May, then we should have been talking about this in March.
yeah, see, that's exactly the point. Planning to us would have been, now we are,
It's a done deal.
we're in a position that, and that's not the position you want to put the council in, to say, okay, that's the only thing you have to do.
So, first of all, some of
Right,
these
the
things
same
are just coming to light. You have to understand why they're coming to light. The reason why these contracts, in the first place, were drafted in the month of May is because our DPW department, way back when, I don't know when, was doing that because they wanted the temporary budget to be done and the regular budget to be adopted, okay? They're waiting for the adoption of the budget because they felt the temporary budget would not suffice. So there's a lot of changes that need to be made. Changes such as some of the our vendors cannot get all of the payment
So we are in violent
upfront.
agreement, Susan,
They
that
might
should
have to
not be
wait
done.
quarterly. So the whole process needs to be looked at.
We agree with
We agree.
you, that's
For every
exactly what we
vendor.
said.
Okay, so these contracts, some of them were paid up front. We're not gonna do that anymore.
That has nothing to do with that.
It does.
It does.
No,
Because it
the fact
affects
that
our
they were,
budget.
the fact that we were not notified before the contract ended, and we are notified after the contract ending, has nothing to do with the fact that we're paid in 15 installments upfront or paid under the table. They have nothing to do with that.
Okay, so
So-
you're finding out now,
Yeah,
so in a few months, we have to look at all these things.
okay, but
So
that's what the
the
point was. yeah.
rationale was not to let this continue.
Okay, so, okay, good. I just wanted to say
Yeah,
that that's
and-
not the
and
way.
Anything else on the resolution?
Yes, I have, on the 3-year cooperative agreement with the Interlocal Services Act, given.
Number?
I don't know, I'm on
sorry.
R18201, page 15 in the consent
Okay.
agenda. That helps.
Yeah.
Which one?
Which one?
Page 15.
Page 15.
Yeah,
Given Jules new news,
yeah.
we are here, this is appointing Jules.
Oh, the CDBG?
Oh, sorry. Okay, I would like to possibly discuss a different appointment, maybe the municipal clerk as its representative at the moment, or the assistant administrator.
Where, you're on
For
page
CDBG and open space.
201.
Open space reps.
Sorry.
Oh,
DD
okay.
201, oh, Representative CD.
Oh, okay.
CDBG, well, it's the mayor and I who attend the meetings, so it has to be the individual who actually attends the meetings.
So,
Deputy clerk as the alternative.
let's put a deputy clerk as the alternative. Because how long is this, a 3-year agreement, right?
Rather than amended.
Well,
We have to amend it later.
the only thing is, like you say,
Oh, we have to amend
whoever
later.
it is has to attend the meetings. Maybe she doesn't have the ability there at the evening, at 6 o'clock in the evening.
Once we
She
visit
has
this
a
one-
date.
Jewel and I have been going. She has kids to feed just like you do,
We'll
so
revisit
it's
later.
not a convenient
Revisit
time for her.
later.
Then my suggestion would be
Revisit
to write
later.
down the words borough administrator, maybe take out a particular name, and then put out the DPW director.
Do we have to put in
As
names?
the titles.
You're
That's the
asking me a
title.
Yes,
question
it
I
has
can't
to be a
answer.
designated individual.
But I'm saying,
No,
no, it
by
is a
title or
designated
by name?
individual by
By
title.
title.
By
So then let's
title,
take out the names.
and that
That's
would
it.
solve that, because it's a 3-year agreement.
Take out the names and then it's
And then-
okay.
Well,
we
I
don't have
don't
any
think
issues
Joel's
with it?
gonna wanna go to this meeting after September anyway.
That's what I'm saying, but.
No, but
then
we
rather
don't have
than-
to amend anything then.
Yes, that's right.
But it's still a contract of 3
I know,
years.
I know. I said the same to her.
Anything else?
Yes,
Megan?
sorry. One more question that's at the Roosevelt Common Walkway. The 32,000, does that include the landscaping additions? Does anyone know?
When you say, does it include, this isn't for landscaping, this
The
is.
walkway was just the walkways, but
It's just the
we
walkway.
had talked about putting in
Beautification.
beautification as well, so I
But
wanted
that's
to-
not the purpose of this grant. This grant is
That'll have
not
to be from
beautification, it's for ADA.
So none of
ADA
DPW would have to be.
So my
And
question,
we're not, and just to
Right.
clarify, we're not adding additional money. Essentially, what we determined was that the breakdown of the cost of the project, we felt that we weren't being given enough opportunity to, we wanted to expand the possibility of reimbursements. So we're
Okay,
Reclassify.
reclassifying.
okay.
But it's the same amount of money.
I just wasn't sure if we had asked for certain.
We done with the resolutions?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on the public hearings? Next on the old business,
My public hearings.
we have 3 items under old business. The first is the HVAC system.
Yeah.
HVAC.
Okay, I believe I saw a memo. Jewel, did you send a memo out? that
Yes, I did.
We're asking the engineer to supply us with a mechanical engineer to review the whole situation and come up with a plan.
For the entire building?
Well, for the entire complex.
Complex, that's what I meant.
All right.
Let me just tell you something.
Yeah.
Throwing good
From
money
the first
after
day
one.
that we put this system in,
It was a
Honeywell,
mess.
Don't say
it has been a bastard system.
From day one.
From day one. And, oh boy, I'll tell you.
Are we looking to just patch it up or
Let me-
replace
let me
it?
just-
No, we're looking for a recommendation. The
Right.
most important thing, we want 2 things. One, we want it to function, and 2, we want to stop with these ridiculous charges.
We're
that we have.
patching now.
I know.
But the system, as it ages, requires even more
Okay.
fitment.
But you know, Jewel, even when it was brand new, it was strong.
And I've heard that. I've heard that it never
Was the
really
wrong
worked
thing
well.
to do.
For all of us, Sean.
That's
Okay,
why I did
okay,
it.
all right.
You're
I read very carefully the memo that Julie just wrote.
Hold on, wait for everybody.
Yeah. Can I have your attention, please?
Yes, sorry, Max.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I read very carefully the memo that Julie wrote over here, and the numbers don't exactly work out with the memo. The memo basically says that the chiller is not a problem because it's new. But we look at the numbers according to the Hughes, whatever, the biggest single expense is the chiller. And
It's the connectivity to the chiller. It's not the chiller itself.
the way I read it over here, and you tell me if it's right or not, it's $11,000, which is the total $34,000 that we spent. We spent $11,800 in fitting up the whatever.
Page 11.
Yeah.
APG?
Yes, for the chiller, which is basically not a connect. It's like
Boost like.
boosting. Yeah, but that's
You have a new chiller in an old system. So yes, that's why I thought it was an important clarification, because when the issue came up at first, there was kind of this perception that we had put in a new chiller, and it was the new chiller that was bad. Our new chiller works, but the new chiller is working with an old and out of sync system. So yes, it is the chiller, but it's not it's not the actual equipment. It's the connection between everything else in a system.
the way.
And as I
that-
pointed out, as you can see, if you look through the bills,
I
you'll
looked at
see
the bill, so
it's
listen for
not
a
in
second.
one place.
Listen for a second. $11,000 are just for the chiller to fill up the glycol system, which has nothing to do with it. Is the chiller like losing, like a air conditioning losing Freon? It's the biggest single expense. It is nothing that, and that's something that is very worrisome, because if that is fitting up the glycol, and it's the new chiller, a third of the total cost is just a single type of problem.
And that's why we're doing the assessment, because we're being.
But that's a new chiller.
It is a new chiller, but it's a new chiller that's controlling a system that is broken.
Okay, so there are other things. If you look at the cost over here, they have a call to the police department because there was too hot, and they came out three times, and they charge us $2,500 for one call. Is anybody? I mean, there is a call for the police department. They come out on 2/6, 2/7, 2/9, and they basically charge us $2,600. I mean, 3 times for the same problem. Why do we pay 3 times if they didn't fix it? There are 2 problems here.
It's in different parts of the building.
This is the police department too hot. And is anybody managing it? Because I think there are 2 things. One of them is the charges that we have from Hughes. $11,000 to fill the chiller 3 times, twice in the winter. I mean, I don't understand why
Well, I
they,
think that's why, I think everybody agrees. This has to end.
exactly,
It has
two
to,
problems.
yeah.
One is the Hughes, and the second is the system.
We
first of
don't
all,
know that Hughes is the problem.
we don't know that Hughes is the
Right,
problem.
and the problem that, at the time that they were hired, they were the cheapest.
And and you got rid of the previous vendor because you thought they were too expensive. Meanwhile, you got a
You
new
know,
vendor.
the real
thinking that
problem
you
with
would save
Hughes
money,
is
and it was comparable.
we bring them
Same price.
in to resolve a problem, an issue. It doesn't solve the whole picture.
I agree.
We need a plan from a mechanical engineer that covers it from top to bottom. Let's fix it once and for all.
I agree.
Although,
Totally.
you know, we're probably gonna have to bite the bullet. I can't imagine the fix
gonna be
being
expensive.
inexpensive.
No, it
It's
won't
going to
be.
be very expensive.
Yeah. But what I
It
was.
has to be done.
What I was pointing to you is that the biggest expense with Hughes is fitting up the chiller with glycol, whatever, $11,000 out of 34, a new system. I have a hard time. How many times do you put Freon in your system, in your home,
Once a year.
once a year? Here's 3 times at $11,000. So I have a question.
there's a-
Can
you know,
somebody take a
listen,
look?
The question becomes, do you blame the vendor for coming in and fixing what we ask him to fix?
Yeah.
And if we ask him to fix it 3 times, or add, it's not his fault, it's our fault. We need to resolve the problem. And like Shama said before, Shama was here when I got here. This
Day one.
predates all of us.
Day one.
It's time that we resolve the
Messy,
problem once
messy
and
thing
for all.
for day one.
We need to
And that's
get an
what I-
expert in here that can analyze the whole
I totally support that,
situation.
Leah. I totally.
We agree. I thought there were 2
Okay.
problems. One with Hughes.
Well, I don't know that Hughes is the
Whatever it
problem.
is.
Let me read
It's
it.
like,
I think-
it's like,
but
no
Matt-
offense, it's like blaming Moscone because we asked him to do jobs.
Yeah, no, I agree, but let
We'll
me
get
just.
to that.
But Max,
Let me go
the
to
point
the
is,
issue.
until we know the overall problem, we're going to have to keep calling Hughes or X, Y, and Z
Yeah,
to
but,
fix the
but let me
patch.
let me get to the point because it's important. They are filling up the chiller, boost glycol concentrator on 1213, 1218, 1219, and 1229 4 times, and it cost us 11,000.
Well, you know, maybe if Mr. Hughes had had a conscience, at some point he would have said, you know, I can come back every day for the next year, why don't we fix this thing? Now, maybe he said that, maybe he didn't, but
that's the question.
Shame on us for not asking. So we're
That's exactly
all
the
right, so
point.
we're asking now. We'll get it done.
Okay.
Okay? Next is the IRS guidance on state and local tax payments.
So
I
did
think it
Murphy
just-
Murphy signed it? Did he
Yeah,
sign the
he
charter?
did.
But I think, once again, I think we're in the same position we were before, and
I don't
that
think
is
it's
a
made any
holding
difference.
pattern.
Yeah, it's a holding thing.
Nothing,
That's what
nothing
I
is
said.
gonna come of this.
Nothing.
Nothing.
I agree with you there.
In fact, those that have done things are gonna end up paying the price for it, so it's a good thing we waited. Last but not least is the Pride Day.
So Pride Day we're very excited about it. A lot of residents have come up, thrilled that this day is happening. Just to let you know, I heard from a longtime resident here who could not tell her daughter's world and social world that she had a partner for afraid to be bullying, and now she will participate in this Pride Day. So she's very excited about this event, and it's given me a lot of resources. The issue on the table, of course, is the timing of it. I think at this point it's been resolved. I've spoken with Father Dan. He has expressed concern that we will interfere with the church services at Mount Carmel in the center of town by having noise in Hyler Park close by. I think to solve this, we're going to move Pride Day, which was originally scheduled with our special events committee at 9:30. We're going to move it to much later in the day. So our options are, I'll throw this out to council, church services are at 8, 10, and 12. They run for about 45 minutes, then they let out, from what I understand.
So the 12 will end it by 1?
I've spoken with the Chief Chamberlain about the traffic and the flow. So the way Pride Day is set up right now is we will meet on George Street for a parade, which will take about 20, 25 minutes, Mayor, to Hyler Park. Is that a correct estimate? And then when we get to Hyler Park, we will have a few speakers. We have 2 that I know of. We'll Cunningham, who ran in the Congressional 2nd District here in New Jersey, will speak. Dory Kavanaugh, a resident here, will speak. I will do a flag raising. At that point, then we can have some music. So our choices are, since we're not starting in Highland Park, do you want to start the parade at 12:30? Do you want to start the parade at 1 o'clock? At the same time as we are parading, local and county groups will be coming with information, setting up tables. I don't think that noise will interfere at all with any religious organizations in town. At least I hope not. They should be pretty quiet in Highland Park. So we have to call a start time for them to show up. We just have a start time for the parade. So I throw it out.
Well, I think you mentioned the time 1 o'clock, because just to talk about the last sentence in the letter we got from Father Dan says, we prefer that this event take place after our morning worship services are concluded. They'll be concluded by 1 o'clock. My concern is I don't want to have this event in Highland Park as people are coming out of the church at 1 o'clock. So if you were to start the parade at 12:45 or 1 o'clock, I think we're okay.
Yeah.
So, Father Danny went as far as to say, if you're going to do this after we're out of our church, feel free to use our parking lot. If people want to park their cars there, they can park their cars there.
And I've invited him, actually, if
They
he wants to
support
speak.
this just as I support it. I think we all support it. And I look forward to an event that doesn't create any division among our people. And I think you're doing a great job, and I'm looking forward to a very successful event. I would be very pleased if we start this parade at 1 o'clock and it's only a 15 or 20 minute walk. Let's hope the weather is good.
So then I'll call and meet on George Street at 1?
One.
At 1?
One is
So
official.
set up at
Hotel,
12:30 for
thank
the
you.
tables, the
Yeah.
parade at 1 o'clock.
You tell people to start gathering at 12:45.
12:45, yeah, so
Started
the
at 1.
Yeah,
parade
you
moves
can't,
at
you can't
1.
gather too soon.
Gathering,
So the
George.
parade moves at 1.
12:45, and I have spoken to a lot of freeholders, our county executive Jim Tedesco today.
Is
Did you get
gonna come?
Eustace?
Someone,
Eustace?
I will speak with Tim Eustace, there's
Yes,
an
you
Officer
should
Tracy as well. I've been, I have a lot of resources, so now that we have a set time, I get to reach
Yes,
out.
David Ganston.
Are the flyers?
All freeholders should be getting an invite, so Jewel, when I get the flyer.
Yeah, we've drafted it, but we needed the
Right,
time.
as soon as I can get that emailed, I
So now
will
you
get
know the
it
time.
off.
Is it-
The other question I have, and I wanted the banner to go across Washington Avenue. Rudy's, it's expensive, so I was just asking, there's no special events budget from what I understand.
How much? What's it?
I will be paying out of pocket.
How much is it?
It's about $1,000.
Whoa, that's expensive.
Well, it's
For what?
Well, you know,
It's a large
Banners are
banner to go
reusable,
across
but
Washington
the
Avenue.
initial outlay
Oh.
is
yeah,
high.
make sure and don't
Make
put
it,
something
make
too
it
big
generic.
that
Make it
doesn't,
generic.
isn't generic.
Tenafly.
Yeah.
Well, if it's going to be a reusable, is there any way for reimbursement
Yes, so
or
that's,
something on this?
I think that for PrEP, I would be willing to.
I would say this,
It will
okay?
become an annual event.
Events like this shouldn't be sponsored by the borough.
Why not?
We should get a nonprofit organization to run these things, like the Elks Run Memorial Day. The only thing we do is supply logistical aid. I don't like there's a creche there that's done by Mount Carmel, there's the menorah that's done by the Lubavitch. We don't pay any of this stuff. I think it's a dangerous precedent to get involved with something like this, because then you're going to have other people come to you and say, well, you're supporting gay pride, how about this particular activity? I think it's a great idea, and I think we need, and Lauren, maybe what the idea is formulate a committee that wants to do this and raise funds.
So we reached out to some local groups we did about it, and they all would like to participate, not necessarily run it. So when we have groups in Highland Park, I can again broach the subject, but at the moment, they are looking to the borough to run this day.
Yeah, I
First time
think.
round, don't see any problem with
Yeah,
us
I
running
think
it,
that
and if it's a success,
Yeah.
some other organization may step up. I mean, let's do it and.
Whatever you guys want to do, I'm just giving you my
All right,
suggestion.
so here is the vote for $1,000. Yes, yes, yes. Lauren,
Who's gonna vote no?
yes.
No, say no.
There are
Say
three
no, say
yes,
no, say no,
yes
say no.
for the
You gotta say
$1,000.
yes.
Yes.
Where?
What
From
am I
where?
voting on?
From
Where
where?
it's coming?
Want to take it out of roads?
No, let's we'll discuss it. Jewel, do we have a?
Can't do that.
Can't just take
I mean,
it from a
that's what I'm being
line
told.
item that hasn't been budgeted. You're not allowed to do that.
don't we have some general type of
It would have to
funding?
come out July 4th. so
I'm sorry?
Can we?
The events that we have are itemized.
How do
So
we make-
there's no general events budget.
Let me ask you a question. Would you
So how
like?
do we
would
advertise
the
like
coun-
Memorial Day and?
would the
and
council-
We don't do
fireworks?
Memorial Day.
Let Peter ask.
With the you know, we have a money left over from last year for Tenafly First. I believe, you know, from the
Listen for a
concerts
second.
In a trust fund?
in a trust fund. But I'm
You
glad,
have to remember that the people donated the money towards
Particular purpose.
concerts.
yeah.
They may not want to support.
You're right, you're right.
So you gotta be
Private
really
fundraiser.
careful with the trust fund.
No, you're right, you're absolutely
Look,
correct.
for this year, I am happy to make that donation towards the borough. You know, if there was a way to get reimbursed,
But
all
is
for
there
it.
any way you could get the funds raised just like he does for the concert?
I think what we ought to do, Lauren, is at this event,
No, see.
mention that we're looking for an organization
To
to
head it.
sponsor it next year.
Or even try to get funds raised anytime this year.
Let me ask you
Even if
something.
it's
When we
after,
had
we could put those funds
parade
in
for
a
the
trust,
fire trucks
you
and
could be
stuff like
reimbursed.
that, for the
Do it that
how
way.
did we fund?
Memorial Day?
No, when we had all the fire trucks from
For
all
Christmas?
Community night.
Look,
Ah.
that
Well, I'm
was
trying to figure out what.
something that Tony sponsored, and we had
Tony? Oh,
yes.
fire.
I mean the fire department.
It was our turn, and we knew about that in advance,
So
so
how did
it
you
was
find-
budgeted.
It was budgeted.
It was
Okay, that's what I
budgeted.
was asking. Okay, it was
Yeah,
budgeted.
but besides, I really believe that's a little different than.
No, I was just trying from the financial point of view, what are you to do?
Well, as of now, we have very little promulgation of this event. I'd like it to be well known that it is occurring, because those who want to participate keep asking me what day, what time,
But
where.
that's-
Well, we can put it on the website. We can
It
put
should
it
be on the website, it should be
on
on
the
our-
message board,
on our
like we
message
do
board.
all events.
And it should be, hopefully, you know, I wish it had made the newsletter, but it didn't, you know. You know, it should have been in the newsletter for another time, and,
Well, we didn't have.
And my
that.
suggestion
well,
is,
we had the date at all times. It should-
Lauren, my suggestion is make up about 20 flyers and put them in, like the diner, TPR, that sort of thing, you know.
Yes.
Okay.
You should be able to get some help on the flyers.
No, we're doing it, we're helping with the flyers.
Okay,
That's why I
but
said, we already had a draft,
All
but
right,
then
but
the
I'm
time
saying
changed.
organizations with
Rainbow.
logos and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, because we're not putting logos.
Lauren, would a
I
robocall
don't
help?
have the.
Lauren, can I contribute
Yeah,
to
yes.
this?
There's
This is Chief J.
robocalls.
Berlin. We would like to invite you to.
No,
They're not gonna be
I'll
local
contribute.
traffic anyway.
Lauren, I'll contribute to that, to the banner.
Thank you, Max, but I will get this done.
Put it in the trust and let her get more contributions so she can see
I'll
hers.
contribute to the banner.
Okay.
Listen to her, she's a CFO.
Fine, we will discuss ways to fundraise for
Fundraise.
future years if we can't pass it off to a group.
Okay, I do believe that, believe it or not, concludes our work session.
Yeah.
The public? No, a work session. We're gonna take a 2-minute break.
Okay, good.
Then
Go
a
into
public
public.
meeting, at which point public comment is very quick.
Wasn't it supposed to be the beginning?
Of the public meeting.
Yeah, usually we do this,
At the public
once I spoke and I remember in the beginning.
See, when you spoke
Yeah,
about
but
it,
we're not
We
gonna
wait like so much for, 1 minute they can give us.
Cruel and inhuman punishment. Can we let them have their?
Sure, absolutely.
Public comment?
3 minutes.
Well, yeah, I was about to.
You can have fire.
Just before you start, just state your name for the
I'll
record.
do everything. First of all, I apologize for reading. If you could know how much my heart is pumping, you will understand me.
You're among friends.
My name is Tamar Lazarovici and I live on 35 Franklin Street. I bought the house 8 years ago when GPS was a small business. GPS is a plumbing supply business. Since then, it grew into a monstrous place. Trucks, cars, container trucks are coming and going all day long. Plumbers and private citizens are coming and going. The street itself is only 10-yard width. For a container truck to back up into the gate, it takes a lot of maneuvering and plenty of noise, of beeping noise when it's reversing. It is a nightmare of noise, dirt and activities in a street that is part residential and part commercial. Cars parking all over on both sides, at times blocking my entrance to my house. Today I found out that the adjacent business, the laboratories, are going to expand into a gym. There are barely 20 parking lot places in this place, and there is going to be an extra business in a small tiny road that is half of it residential and half of it commercial. Where are we going to fit all the cars, the traffic, the noise, and the pollution? Aren't there any laws to limit activities and to protect me too in a street that is also residential? By the way, last night I woke at 4 a.m. in the morning because the garbage collector is coming to collect the garbage from the GPS at 4 a.m. in the morning. And it's going on for a long time. I'm complaining about it to the mayor. He knows. It's also the other businesses that are collecting in the middle of the night the garbage. There is no limit to the expansion that they are doing. There are many residents in my street that are rental. That's why I'm here alone. This is my home. I live across from them. And it's getting a nightmare. It's getting worse and worse.
Frank.
My life is a nightmare. I'm looking for your ear and something to be done about it. That's my husband. I'm sorry for the emotion.
No,
that's okay.
There's no need to be.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
You're among friends. Don't worry about
I
it.
apologize.
My name is Harry Lazarovici. I live at the same address, obviously. And my wife said almost everything I wanted to say. I have only one question. I don't know you personally. The only person I know is the mayor. I had a series of conversations with him. And I wrote every one of them an email, and I didn't get any answer from any one of you. This is something that I really, really don't think should be happening in a town in the United States of America, where you go to every single council member, and the only one that is answering is the mayor. Doesn't matter, he couldn't help me. And I had a conversation, we had a very strong conversation, but at least we had something going. And he actually, to be honest with you, he warned me that I shouldn't raise too much noise. The point is that you have to do something. Either way, if you don't do anything, I will do anything I can to take care of this thing. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lazarovich, when did you write the emails?
I sent this email on.
I wrote emails
Lauren
to your address.
I did respond.
You didn't respond. Nobody
And I
responded.
sent it to the mayor and the borough
Yeah, I saw-
administrator and Lizette.
I saw
So
Lauren's
that there was a
response.
follow-up.
Well,
We didn't
if
get
you
it.
responded, I didn't get it.
We didn't get anything.
It was discussed and it was not ignored. I just want to make that point.
Let me ask you something.
As
You
a-
have a correspondence here. I
I
see
don't
all
have
this.
it.
What do I have to do to have my letters here on this, so the council will discuss it?
Did you send it?
You spend it minutes and hundreds of people that spend zero money here. I pay all the taxes here
Did
and
you
on
send it
time.
like this, or how did you send the letter?
Email. No, email to
There was an
everyone.
email. And just so you know, the email did come through and it
Did-
was
did you get it?
immediately
No.
discussed.
Jeff, did you?
The mayor
Did you?
responded,
When was it?
the borough administrator was on it. We bring up the correspondence that has not been discussed.
Tony, did you get it?
Your issue was responded and discussed as soon as humanly possible, so we didn't have to wait for a council meeting.
None of us got it.
I got it, and I did,
Yeah.
I know that we are told that the waste management, and I know the mayor has explained this, the waste management at 4 a.m., I asked
You did?
specifically,
I did.
it is a private company that the plumbing company has hired, right?
Yeah, but Bill.
We are,
Well, hold on. Bill's our borough attorney,
yes.
and Bill will explain. We'll say that
We should have a meeting. I don't want to keep all of you here, but.
No, this is the right forum for you,
If it's
please.
something to be discussed, I would be very happy to.
No, the
discuss
only,
it.
unfortunately, what I told you is correct. We don't have
follow it
the
too.
ability or the authority to regulate the garbage pickup. Now, the other issues,
I would not accept such a thing, with all due respect.
4 o'clock in the morning collecting garbage?
Nothing.
There is residence
Listen, if you
there.
want to tell us this,
we're
then
gonna
we should
talk,
tell.
we're gonna discuss it now if you give us a chance.
Sure, sure.
Have a seat, Howard.
Thank you.
Is there anything that
Did you
we
get
can
it
do?
yet?
Well, unfortunately, I mean, if we're part of the zoning ordinance, you know, and that particular zone said no activity, you know, no commercial activity between the hours of such and such.
We can do that?
Here, I got it.
Sure,
There we go. It's on the.
But you can't do it now, I mean.
What do you mean we can't do it now?
Well, I guess you could do an amendment to, but you have to notice to everybody.
Are
in the
they
zone.
grandfathered in?
You're not, no, a property right is grandfathered. A bar regulation, no garbage pickup.
You told me that we
You could.
we can't regulate, you know, if it was if it was our people, if it was the Waste Industries who collects residential under a contract that we signed with them, we could regulate it.
This isn't Waste Industries.
This isn't Waste
No,
Industries.
listen.
Privately.
It's a private.
Obviously, towns can pass regulations that impact commercial activities.
At that
Can't
hour
shop in
especially.
Paramus on Sunday, can
We
you?
just
Can't
passed.
shop here on
Blue
Sunday.
laws, blue law, because of blue laws.
But let's stick with this.
But okay, it's a commercial activity, all right, and the governing body could regulate the commercial activity if it's done on a, you know, an equal basis.
Well, can you do me a favor? Can you just check that as best you can, because I don't see any value to our town allowing garbage pickups before 6 in the morning.
Absolutely.
And I'll be honest with you, I have another.
I was just going to ask, is there not a noise ordinance?
It doesn't apply.
Yeah, it doesn't
Why would it
apply.
not apply if
The
it's loud enough to trip
Because it's
someone
not
up?
persistent.
But the beeping of the backing up trucks, I would think that would comply.
That's a safety
that would-
issue, though.
It's not constant.
That's a
It's
federal.
not constant.
That's a federal regulation.
Well,
You can't.
And I will add, Waste Management picks up at Smith School at about 5 in the morning because they wake me very
Yes.
consistently.
So that's 6.
Now,
But that's
now,
Waste Industries.
One thing you
That's our
have,
guys.
you have to take into account that if you put an ordinance into place, you may find a place like GPS or Smith School may not be able to find somebody to pick up their
You gotta
garbage.
be very careful how you handle this, let me
Yeah.
tell you. You gotta be
that's a
very
fact.
careful, because it's gonna come back to bite you.
Because I've called Waste
You mean
Management
That's right.
a couple of times on their behalf, and all I get is lip service,
Of course.
okay?
They've actually told us that they would try.
They try,
But-
but they try, and sometimes
called
it goes
them as
away
well.
for a week or two, and then it comes back. This is, I have another address with the same situation, probably a different carrier, Interstate Waste or whatever. That 274 County Road. It's an apartment house right on the corner of Hudson Avenue, and the garbage is right in the back next to the rabbi who just bought the house next to where Carol Byrne used to live, and he's complaining same complaints that Harry and his wife has. So we'll investigate the ability to make a zoning regulation, and if that is legal,
Or
we'll do that. But my concern
You're
is.
talking, you know how many businesses in Tenafly have garbage at certain,
Yeah,
early in
well,
the morning?
that's when
I'm telling you.
commercial pickups take place. The only difference is this street is a mixed-use street, residence and commercial, as is the corner of Hudson and County Road.
And mine's purely residential, and I get it, as I said,
Well,
5 in the morning.
because it's in.
It's by a school.
Well, maybe you like it. Because you
I don't think
don't complain until you don't
think-
complain.
No, I don't think anybody likes it.
Right.
But with all due respect, I have two issues and I don't want to fall only one. One was the fact of this garbage collection. The other one, in my opinion, you must do something to limit. This is a small street. You can't let trucks for, containers, food it's going and you want, I will bring you pictures, everything you want. You have to do some limitation of traffic on this street. I don't know.
After your complaint, I did speak to the police chief and asked him, especially at night, if those men could keep an eye on the street. Now, I don't travel down that street a lot. I used to travel down for Tenafly Pediatrics, and I know that street is very congested. Now, I don't. My street is a residential street. It's much busier than it used to be. Every street is busier than it used to be. Vanu, have you heard anything about, at the Board of Adjustment, about a gym coming in or where the lab is there?
Yeah. The
I'll
officer told me.
look into it, but if it's,
They are adding business to this.
A running business.
It's a running club, they didn't need a variance.
they don't need a change of use?
It's
Oh,
permitted use.
Permitted
It's a
use.
permitted use.
They need parking.
Well, if you want to hear, you hear our against it now. You know, we can.
It's a permitted use. You
I
can-
don't know, on the second floor, it's a building, and
No.
then it's expanding this.
Look,
Listen, the street is 10-yard width.
yeah. and-
You're adding businesses and businesses,
Well,
what about the residents?
You know, with all due respect, we're not adding businesses, okay?
I mean, the gym
Well,
is coming.
Right, right. What I'm saying, you know, somebody has property, as long as they follow the zoning rules, you know, they're allowed
We
to
have to
do
look
that.
at the zoning.
Well, we're gonna look at the zoning as far, well, I think you understand the dilemma we are in. Almost all commercial garbage is picked up very early in the morning.
Up forward.
So we have to be very careful because we don't want to have, we don't want to change, we don't want to
That's the
have.
point that you were saying.
But yet, when you moved in there, it was a mix, you know, I don't want to fight. You're
I
entitled.
moved there, they didn't tell me, at 4 o'clock you have a.
You're entitled to quality of life. I appreciate that. We'll see what we can do.
Because I pay taxes just like somebody else on a regular street.
I know
I
you
don't
do.
have any.
So we get punished because we bought the house.
I know you do. We'll see what we can do.
Okay, thank you for listening.
And by the way, you
I would
misspelled
like
my
to-
name,
So
that's
Harry-
why I didn't receive
No,
it.
I said resent. I know I resent because 2 of them didn't go. So
Harry,
I
I-
sent separate.
I just want to show you, so I got your email, just to let you know, on May 10th. On May 11th, I sent to Jewel, what has been done to address this thus far? Please let me know so we can respond with next steps. Jewel sent back a very detailed paragraph to me so I can understand, and the mayor said he will reach out to you, and that is the series of
which I
steps
did.
that our
So
council
maybe you can
took.
send me your paragraph. I will be very happy. I appreciate it.
Well, I
Because I
believe-
don't intend to leave this going. Trust me.
Yes, but
I
just know
will
it.
fight until my last day, until I will get what I'm. I bought this house. I knew what I'm buying, and I know I know what are my rights. That's all.
A motion to close the work session?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
5 minutes, but no more.
No more than that.
No more. I was gonna say, good evening again. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting, are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the municipal center, and published in the record in the first 10 days of the new year. Copies of all revised or additional meeting notices are sent via fax to the Record, Suburbanite, and Northern Valley Press, and are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the municipal center. I shouldn't be doing that after eating potato chips. Salute to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Tripoli Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Barrett?
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayter?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Here. Minutes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the following sets of minutes. May 1st, the work session, May 15th, the 2 closed sessions, the regular meeting, and the final closed session. Motion, please?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Revisions to the agenda?
Nope.
I would like very much to ask the council and our audience to have a moment of silence in memory of Councilman Ed Adib. He served from January 5th of 1991 and resigned on January 10th, 1996. I served as a council member for 5 years. Thank you. And just for your information, I got a request from the mayor of Morristown to do this, who serves with Councilwoman Allison Deeb, who is the daughter of Ed Deeb. And good to see that some kids are following in our footsteps. Next is public comment. Anybody care to speak? I'll go around the room once and... Oh, go ahead. Ladies first.
I'm sorry. 2 things.
Name first, please.
Christine Evron, first resident, 39 Leroy Street. DPW, I did report the potholes, which were fairly significant on Leroy Street, and they were filled within 3 weeks. It wasn't instantaneous, but it was very fast.
I think they were, honestly, they were waiting for, there was some work being done across the street from these potholes, and I think they were waiting for that work to get finished.
That might be, but this was in March or so when with climate change, you get bigger potholes, you do. You have more temperature swings. The other thing is on the historic district downtown, the building with Cook Teak is historic, it had a historic residence. I don't think whether or not you think the architectural features are attractive to you should really be quite the consideration, the only consideration, or a consideration. It should be whether it is historic, and the Historic Commission, who is knowledgeable in this area, should be more of a control on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Hercules Invictus, 3 Columbus Drive. I've been away for a while and now I'm going to start coming back. I just wanted everyone to know that I'm very grateful to the mayor, the council, and the administration for demonstrating that with all the threats we have to our freedom, participatory government is taking place here. And it really thrills me, it makes me proud to be a resident of Tenafly. So thank you very much.
We appreciate your pride. Anybody else care to speak?
Yeah, I'll say. Two things.
Just state your name.
Kevin Tremble, 81 Westervelt Ave. I just feel that what we are talking about tonight about the history of downtown, I wanted to put before you the idea of the way the commission works in terms of it uses criteria and professional assistance. And those are the decisions and recommendations that come out of what they do. I've done it myself for many years. I think the criteria that Councilwoman Dayton is talking about, criterion B in the ordinance, associative value of the history of the building and those associated with it. That criterion is equal to all the other criteria, which there are 5. Architectural significance being one, and that determines the facade, and B being the significance of people associated with the site. In this case, not only is the building, I believe, I just read the report again, that this building is the earliest building on the street, from historically being established the longest of all the buildings we've talked about. So its history being associated with a family of merchants who were accepted in the community and provided a really viable business for almost 100 years, I think those two factors are really important, and I would urge you to reconsider your vote. That's my main pitch for that. And the other pitch is, what do we do about the slalom driving course we've created on Piermont Road from Central to the Cresthill line? I am dismayed about driving that road because it's just undrivable. And I spoke with a council member who's not on the council any longer 2 years ago about the condition. It's far worse today. What we spend in our budget, and if this is a county road, as I understand it, am I correct?
No,
it's
it's
not.
being fixed this summer.
Oh, it's being fixed this summer. Wow, that's what I heard last year.
Yeah, it's going to be done.
So is it in the ordinance that you just approved?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Spending $1 million.
That's great news.
$1 million.
And how does the what's Complete Streets program policy that you adopted fit into the work you're going to do?
Well, the Complete Streets, it's not mandatory, but it encourages you to look at all forms of mobility when you do a road. Can you bicycle it? Can you walk it? And there's some, I guess, uncertainty as to whether or not Piermont Road is eligible for bike lanes, but we've been asked to have the engineer look at that in particular as part of the Complete Streets process. Before the specifications are completed.
Okay, so it is part of the analysis that we...
Correct.
Great, thank you.
And everything that comes out of the meeting, we disseminate to people the following morning.
Okay.
So they'll get that information.
And you're, Excuse me, if I can just ask one question about the vacancy ordinance you're proposing to adopt tonight. How does that affect vacant historic buildings?
No different than a regular building.
Well, maybe it is different. Shouldn't any discussion about how it's treated go before the HPC? I mean, I know we're not talking about the ordinance hearing right now, but I'm just...
No, we're just encouraging...
No, I understand that.
How would it impact historic building?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. A vacant historic building.
It doesn't impact...
Well, it would impact the, anything that, that the historic designation was based upon.
But anything that the property owner would have to do in the vacancy ordinance case would have to be according to the standards of the HPC.
Well, but I don't think there's anything
The only
that
thing
we would
we're
have that they would
requiring
cut
him
to
to
the
do is
grass.
keep it clean.
Yeah, keep it clean.
To register and keep it
It's not
clean.
about renovation.
Right.
It has nothing to do with
Right.
renovation whatsoever.
It had broken windows.
And in any event, even if it did, they still have to comply with all other requirements. You know,
Thank you.
there'd be
The road resurfacing to various roads by the Borough of Tenafly by appropriating an additional $475,000, therefore and authorizing the issuance of an additional $452,000 bonds or notes of the borough to finance the cost thereof. Ordinance number 18-10, an ordinance of the Borough of Tenafly in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, appropriating $8,125 for handicap accessible sidewalk walkway for the senior center.
Public comment on any of these three ordinances? Dan, would you make a motion?
To pass and adopt on second and final reading, ordinance 1808, 1809, and 1810. That notice of same shall be published according to law.
A second, please?
Second.
Please call the roll. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Goldstein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayter?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Committee reports. And there'll be a reward for the shortest committee report.
I never win it. I got one from the Chamber of Commerce.
All right, a volunteer, yes.
Okay. The Chamber of Commerce is actually holding some fantastic seminars at the Clinton Inn at 6 p.m. starting this Thursday. The first one is how to rent your first apartment. Next Thursday, June 21st, how to buy a used car. And on June 28th, how to stay healthy without your mother nagging. In addition, they are holding a summer solstice yoga event in Hyler Park on June 21st at 9:30 a.m. Please come join. Max, you're a yogi. I expect to see you there.
I'll pick you up.
Yes. And so thank you, Christine, for organizing those. Those sound wonderful.
Send me an email.
And the rest is nothing new to report. In recreation or welcoming, they did not meet this month. The zoning, I don't even know what happened this week. Zoning had one postponement and one approval of a variance. And the teen center is just awaiting its new hire and its renovations. And that's everything.
Dan, you have anything?
No.
Jeff?
Yeah, the Access for All committee met May 30th. There was discussion about encouraging businesses to be aware of accessibility and laws and make changes accordingly. To recognize businesses that go out of their way to make businesses accessible. Discussion of a plaque for the JCC for their work in making contributions to ADA laws. Let's see.
Well, when you do a plaque like that, do you get the newspapers involved? You should.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
We're going to start that soon, and we're going to get the newspapers involved.
Yeah, there should be a picture in the paper.
We also discussed the possibility on community night of creating an obstacle course so that people could become more aware of some of the issues. The only other thing I want to add, and I did tell
That's a
Hercules
great idea, by the way, to do obstacles and
That was his idea. It was an awesome idea.
have a wheelchair there. And say,
Yeah.
try the course in the wheelchair.
Yep, basically that's it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that turnout, since I've been on, has generally been low at these meetings, and so we are talking about ways to find people, identify people who might be members who would actually come to these meetings, because this year turnout has been very low.
I know that's one of the committees that I have. Another one, Lauren, is the
the teen center committee. I have a very difficult time finding people that want to participate. So any assistance anybody could provide. I know every year, I normally call the special department at the high school or at the central office to see if, it used to be Lorraine Charm, and I forget the woman's name now, if she could offer any suggestions of who might be interested.
Well, I would suggest that maybe we reach out to PASIC, which is the parents group
That's a great
associated with the
idea.
school, and see, they may want to have basically someone from their group represented.
Great idea.
The AFA kind of hit its peak about 3 or 4 years ago when the ADA requirements were amended and made stricter. And then we had like a long series of well-attended meetings. That's when we did the plan for the parks, and then, and I guess now that the laws are in place and we're compliant,
it's time to get to a new peak.
Okay. Anything else? Max, you have anything?
I'm going to try to be very quick and very humorous.
You keep promising that.
I'm trying. I was very good, and I'm going to be even better now. May I have your attention, please?
I was just going to tell them another group, Pass-It in the elementary school levels is hopefully involved. Now go ahead.
So the senior center committee, Shama and myself met with the representative of the town hall, Rebecca Stauffer, and Jamie Grana, I forget her name. Cannon. It was a very, very funny meeting. We started by apologizing to Jamie that we have basically trying to impress her or trying to, because of our meeting, and she intimidate. And she told us, I was never intimidated by anybody. Who told you that? So, well, we were reported that, you were so intimidated. And that kind of set up the meeting the way it was. To make a long story short, as I reported, Becky and I spent a lot of time, and we agree that absolutely we can do the activities of the center over here. And when we met with Jamie, when you were there was all an agreement, absolutely. It was completely upside down. Everybody reports that we cannot do anything. We can't do it. I'm not so sure. And then they said, why don't we buy another building across the street? And Shama said, for $1 million, that will be completely unresponsible for us to spend $1 million when we don't have to do that. Anyhow, then there was I heard about 3 people that came to me and said that they don't want to come to the city hall, even though but we discussed with the board of trustees that they agreed on that. Oh well, but those people are not from the board of trustees. All right, let's have a meeting together with the entire senior citizens of the Senate to discuss the issue. So it's going to happen tomorrow. It was
3 p.m.
3 p.m. tomorrow. It was very proud.
Is that
That's
it?
all.
Where was the humor?
The humor was in basically what happened over there.
Okay. Shama, you have anything?
Yeah.
Very quick senior center board meeting. I'll just report on a couple of things. The bylaws were reviewed again and approved, which is, Mayor, that we went through that. The craft fair was very successful. They made about $1,700, and they're looking forward to it happening again. 3 new members were elected to the board. I'm sorry I don't have their names right now. I think they're all Tenafly residents, if I remember correctly. The volunteer lunch will be on June 26th at 1 p.m. and the next trustee meeting has been moved to June 25th at 9:45 as usual.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, real quick, I'm sorry, I forgot
No
to
problem.
mention.
My computer actually died, we've been here so long.
We have nothing but time.
Transportation Committee is conducting a survey, and that is available by looking at the links online.
Thank you. Can we move to the new business introduction of ordinances?
Yeah.
Okay, Lucette, you want a council person, or are you going to read this?
I need them to make a motion. I need someone to make a motion before I can read them.
I move to introduce this ordinance now 18-11. And that's it.
Well, just say the numbers.
18-11, 18-12, and 18-13.
Set hearing.
Set the hearing,
Read
June
this.
22nd.
Read this. And set the hearing.
And so,
June 26, 2018 at 8 PM or soon thereafter in the Tenafly Municipal Center.
Is there a second?
Second.
third.
Okay. Ordinance number 18-11, an ordinance to amend chapter 3 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly, and more particularly section 3-16.3, smoking prohibited. Ordinance number 18-12, an ordinance amending chapter 12 by adding a new section 12-6 to the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly, establishing maintenance and registration requirements for abandoned and vacant properties. Ordinance number 18-13, an ordinance to fix the salary, wage, compensation of employees of the Department of Public Works represented by the Tenafly Public Works Supervisors Bargaining Unit for calendar years 2017, 2018, 2019. Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayner?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's announced multiple.
No, I didn't.
Due to the late hour, the mayor's remarks will be postponed
Almost coming.
Thank you, Mayor.
indefinitely.
Almost coming, don't you worry.
I'll entertain, Bill, you want to read the closed session?
Sure. Which one did we leave out on the?
Number two.
Which is.
And B.
2 and B.
And B.
2 and B are remaining to be
And
discussed.
all of B, right.
Two. What's B? Oh.
It's
Under B.
Assistant Borough Administrator Job Description.
Right.
Section.
Resolved in compliance with NJSA 10:4-12. Mayor Council will go into closed executive session to discuss the following matters. One's a personnel matter left over. It's concerning Assistant Borough Administrator job description. And the other ones are attorney-client privilege matters, one involving an EEOC filing. The second is a continuation of our discussion with respect to the DPW investigation. And the third is concerning release of information from the police department. This will be taken in the meeting and released to the public. Time the matters are resolved after this closed executive session, the mayor and council will reconvene in this Richard D. Wilson Committee Room to adjourn this public meeting.
Motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for joining us tonight, everybody.